the number one leader for Al-Qaeda is going to be in a building in Parma, and we may be going to hit that target. The initial target we took down, the enemy wasn't there. So we start pushing in this really dense vegetation, and my interpreter came up to me and said, "Hey man, the guys are gone." And I said, "What are you talking about?" Pushing out to that northeast corner, I was now out front with, I think, my interpreter behind me, and then my team lead, and then maybe DJ and Maddie, and then Luke. And as Maddie and Luke were stepping out, they literally stepped on an enemy fighter who was hidden in the vegetation. They shot him immediately, and that started the ambush. What we didn't realize is I was now literally out front in front of this ambush line, and what we had only thought was 4 or 5 guys turned out to be maybe 12 or 15. Now I realize, hey, you've been shot in the face. So I came up on the radio and called out my team lead, Jay, how long till the medevac? And he was like, "Red, you're still alive?" And I was just focused on, like, you're out of the fight, bro. Like, your job is to survive. Like, stay awake, stay alive. That's your job. Like, all I wanted to do was shut my eyes and just, like, let me just take a break for a minute. But I knew that if I did, I'd never wake up again.
Welcome back, everyone, to the John Rondi Show. Jason Redman, thank you so much for being on the show yet again. Uncle Steve hops on as the co-host for the day. I wanted to open up. Yeah, it's just to sit next to you and share a drink is truly an honor. So we appreciate that.
Cheers, thank you.
Wanted to open up by having you read the famous orange sign on the door, but you memorized it. So if you can share with us, that would be great.
Yeah. Attention to all who enter here. If you're coming into this room with sadness or sorrow, don't bother. The wounds that I received, I got in a job that I love, doing it for people that I love, defending the freedom of a country I deeply love. I will make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physically. I have the ability to recover, and then I'm going to push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And of course, we signed it, the management. So
now, why the management and not just your name?
It was, so there were several reasons, to be honest. Number one, back in the beginning when I was wounded, I did not want my name out in the public eye. It's funny, SEALs are all in the highlight. Everybody wants to make fun of us now because we're so in the spotlight. But I was not looking for that. And this was merely a statement that I wasn't going to feel sorry for myself, and I wasn't going to let anybody else to come in that room and feel sorry for me. And the whole intent was to put it on the door. How the sign came to be is I had some people that came into the room who were feeling sorry for me. And don't get me wrong, man, the military hospital during a time of war is a hard place to be. I mean, young men and women horrifically wounded, blown apart, burned, my case, massive facial injuries. And it is overwhelming. And these people I knew were overwhelmed and really kind of having this pity party, both for themselves and for us. And I think that's a common thing that occurs. People want to place you in the victim box when bad things happen to you. I talk about that. And it was just a recognition. It was kind of like this decision point. I mean, it was within the first week of being wounded, and I won't lie, man, I was still kind of struggling with what had happened to me and what the future was going to hold. I mean, doctors and nurses were giving me all these terrible prognoses. They were talking about amputating my arm. I'm wired shut. I'm trached. They're feeding me through a stomach tube. I mean, I was so weak. Nurses had to help me use the bathroom, and it just was like this trigger point, like. When they were talking about all that, I was like, is that going to be me? Am I going to become the broken veteran that so many people think of when they think of combat veterans? And that's been shown in movies like, Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, beginning of the movie, Lieutenant Dan, hookers and booze, Lieutenant Dan. And I was, in that moment, I was just like, no, that's not going to be me. And this was a stream of consciousness in that moment. My wife had come back in the room, and I wrote to her. I couldn't obviously talk because I'm trached. So I just wrote to her. I said, that's never going to happen again. From this point forward, I refuse to feel sorry for myself, and nobody else is allowed to feel sorry for me. And I wrote out that sign, and I told her, put this on the door. No one's allowed to come in this room unless they read it. And I guess that's why we wrote the management, just because, it was like, hey, you have to follow these rules. This is how this works.
Right.
And kind of fascinating because it took on a life of its own. And obviously it got caught in the national media. It has gone everywhere. I mean, earned me an invitation to the White House to meet President Bush. Who signed the original sign on the door, which now is framed and hangs at the Wounded Ward at Walter Reed. And it's become this amazing statement of overcoming that represents, in my opinion, the warrior spirit. I mean, it went everywhere. It's been written about in books. It's been featured in documentaries. I've had, thousands and thousands of people that have reached out and said, hey, I put this on my door. I'm going through cancer. I've been in an accident. My kid's going through cancer. They were in an accident. So it's amazing the power and the impact it's had since that moment when, I'll be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of thought. I didn't sit there for hours man, what could I write? It was literally a stream of consciousness in the moment, and we wrote it out and it went on the door.
That's all. I love that you acknowledge that it was a letter for everyone else, but it was also sort of a letter for you. And I think a lot of times we also need the reminder that this is a place for recovery and fun and no self-pity either,
Well, and it's become, I often talk to people, I live by a framework, 4 principles. You lead always, overcome, have a mission, and live greatly. And this has become a new mission statement for me. And I tell everyone, often I ask people when I speak, or, what do you want your sign on the door to say? Everybody has something that drives them. And I think as humans, it's critical that we need that. Mission equals purpose. So, military law enforcement, we had that mission or purpose with the things that we did. But when you get into the civilian world, or you're a civilian, you have to kind of create your own. And whether that's driven by family or impact in the community, or I don't care what it is, you need to find it, because as humans, we all need some purpose. And then you need to write it down. And it guides us when we're struggling in this life. And I can't tell you how often, even though the sign lived right next to my door in my bedroom for a couple of years until we made the decision, until President Bush signed it and we made the decision to donate it to the hospital. But there were multiple times, and even today, where I'm not I'm not perfect, man. I have my own issues and problems, and there are times when I am struggling with the things that are going on in life and the challenge and tribulations of being human. And my amazing wife will be like, "Hey, you should watch this video about this guy, this Navy SEAL who got shot in the face." I'm like, thank you. Yeah, let me get back on track.
That's awesome.
But it's that sign that guides me and reminds me, this is who you are. Let's go. You're the overcome guy. This, no matter what problems we have, let's go. Let's drive forward.
It's nice to know that even guys like you need that reminder.
100%, man. Yeah. I don't care who you are. Michael Jordan, you name any top tier elite person. Everyone, we're all human, man. We all have our doubts and struggles at times.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so for today, I want to go in chronological order of your entire career. But before we get started, I don't want to overlook Patriot Hard Seltzer. So if you want to give us a bit of an explanation of how you got started with them and your whole mission statement, all that good stuff, I'm going to grab the cold ones that are down here because I don't want the warm ones.
Yeah. I was very blessed. I mean, obviously, after I retired from the military, I started speaking, and I built a very successful speaking career. And we were making a decent amount of money, and we really weren't putting our money to work. And when COVID happened, it taught me a lesson, because overnight all speaking engagements dried up and went away. And thank God for my military retirement pay, because it helped keep us in our house and pay the minimum bills and buy ramen. And we kind of navigated through that.
You need the ramen.
Yeah, man. Got it. Hey, man, ramen. Yeah, kids, ramen and macaroni and cheese again. Here's some hot dogs. But it started to make me wake up and recognize, hey, I need to be smarter as we drive forward. I need to diversify.
Yeah.
You know, I often joke about you got to embrace DEI. It's not the DEI that some of you out there are like, oh, Jason Redman loves DEI. I love my DEI, which stands for, it's the entrepreneur DEI. Diversify your income streams, look for opportunities that have equity and a future exit, and then figure out how to increase income in the existing and diversified businesses.
So you take that warrior mindset and put it into like everything, like that letter, the motivation and business, and just.
That's right.
And I think you can.
Life is about framework. I live off frameworks. Like I need things to look at and say, hey, these are the right and left limits of how I need to live my life. This is how I need to run my business. These different things. And it was that framework that made me say, okay, I need to start looking for opportunities. I want to put my money to work. My wife and I agreed on it. So we got into real estate. We started buying short-term rentals. We bought a commercial building that we run a co-working executive office space, creative studios, so filming and things like that. And then I was looking for additional opportunities. And I met these two young entrepreneurs from James Madison University. And they had reached out to me online and they said, hey, man, we have this idea for a seltzer company. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really big on seltzer. You know, it's fruity and bubbly and girly and like, you know, it's not really my thing. I'm a whiskey drinker. And they were like, oh, no. We are a whiskey-based seltzer. We are like the anti-seltzer seltzer. And I was like, okay, you piqued my interest. Tell me more. And they said, not only that, we're all about patriotism. We're tired of the world, like what happened with Bud Light when they decided to go down this path of, you know, having trans people and all these different things. They were like, Bud Light is this, and Budweiser and beer was this amazingly patriotic thing.
Manly.
Yeah. And they suddenly made this pivot. And I'm a mindset of, I don't care how you live your life, but don't take a very tiny minority and now try and beat people over the head on the majority with it. Like the majority of people like Bud Light just like it was. Yeah. And they said, we want to stand for patriotism and service and sacrifice. So we had this idea to call it Patriot Hard Seltzer. And we wanted we want to highlight individuals called Proud Patriots on the cans. And I think they tried to get all the greatest high-level people they could find, and then they ended up settling on me. And
oh, come on.
But they reached out, and I said, I love this idea. Let's meet. And I said, and obviously the very first thing, I need to try it. Because it's got to taste good, man. I can't put my name or my likeness on something that doesn't taste good. And they came to my house in Virginia Beach, and I tried it, and I was like, man, this is really good. I think you guys are onto something. And I invested in the company and became a partner with them. And man, it has been a journey. I will say the beverage industry is an absolutely brutal industry to be in. We have learned a lot, but we have sold 40,000 cans here in New Jersey. We had connections in New Jersey. One of the founders is from here. So we felt like New Jersey would probably be the best place to start just because of those connections. We also knew it's kind of a hard market because the excise tax in New Jersey is some of the highest in the country. So we're like, if we can be successful here, we can be successful anywhere. And we've done really well. Over 40,000 cans sold here. We have strong interest in Texas, getting ready to break into the Texas market. We recently, the guys made a great decision to reformulate. We were doing our formulation up in Boston. We just moved to Nashville, and which is bringing our costs down, which is also going to enable some great things for our next round of investors to be profitable as we get out there. And then we're also looking at Virginia. So that's where we're at. Pretty amazing. The last thing I'll say, as you can see right now, you've got this sexy beast on the can.
Fuck yeah.
Looks great.
But God, he's so hot.
Yeah, man.
I'm not even gay, and I do him. But actually, you know, and right from the very beginning, the guys told me, right now I'm the only one on the can, but that's only because we're new as a company and we're monitoring costs and stuff like that. But I'm pretty excited that our next round, and it was always the plan, we will represent every branch of our, or every demographic of the protector community, as I call it, those individuals across American society that really embody the idea of the Proud Patriot, law enforcement, fire, military, and first responder. So I am the military Proud Patriot. We have our fire Proud Patriot identified, Tim Brown, is a 9/11 survivor, firefighter, survived the collapsing of the towers, and amazing individual. So Tim will be fire. Our law enforcement is a former ATF agent credited with the most guns bought off the street of any ATF agent in history. He did all kinds of undercover stuff. Lou Veloce, amazing individual. And then last, our medical is Nikki Selby, who was a combat medic in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then became a flight nurse, which she continues to do today. So the next round coming, we'll have all the proud patriots.
I thought you were going to say Uncle Steve for the law enforcement.
You know, he could be. Well,
I thought that was going to be the launch.
No, our plan is, hey, you know, Uncle Steve.
And Uncle Steve is on our orange cans.
Our goal is, like, we want to run this round of Proud Patriots for a couple of years. And then what we'd really love is to do, to have the people vote, like submit. We drive.
I don't know if I get
So-
it.
We would beg and plead to have Uncle Steve on a Patriot
I mean, you
can.
got a big base, so,
that would
vote
be
Uncle
incredible.
Steve
We can
onto
do
the
it.
can.
As long as I can take the picture
You know?
of him, that's all I care about.
Listen,
That's it. We may be.
I would be
breaking,
honored.
We may be breaking the sexiness law if I was on a can, you were on a
we
can.
both
on
was
the
on a
can.
can.
Yeah.
I think we'd be doing a little too much.
So,
Well, here we go. So cheers again to you.
Cheers, man. Yep.
Cannot thank you enough for getting on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I have green apple. We have green apple, peach tea, lemonade, and cherry cola.
I have cherry
A
cola.
little jealous of Uncle Steve with the cherry cola.
I got the peach tea, and I will say my favorite actually is the cherry cola. That's
Very
my
good.
second.
Crown apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And this like a rum and coke because it's a little cherry
my
flavor
God,
to it.
it is.
Yeah.
You want to
It's
swap?
like a Jack and Coke. Yeah.
This is. You know what's funny? You can taste the whiskey in in a good way.
Yes.
I didn't expect that. Cherry cola. Here we go.
And my wife's gonna watch this, and she's gonna be like, "I know what he's gonna do," because I did it with like any hard seltzer I ever had. I go, "Yeah, I gotta soften it up a little." And she's like, "What are you doing?"
Add
I'm
more
pouring
whiskey.
vodka in it.
Yeah.
She's like, "So I'm gonna pour whiskey in
A
it."
little more whiskey in.
Oh my God, just to
Yeah.
Even it out. Make it feel a little more.
Give it a little more.
because of course.
But you have to taste it like this for the regular
of
citizens.
course.
Yeah.
Really good. So right now they're only located in Jersey.
That's right. Only in Jersey. But like I said, we're on the verge of stepping into Texas and Virginia, and we still have some opportunities for investment opportunities for anybody looking who wants to invest.
It's not fizzy.
No, it's actually very good.
And it's not the taste, like the cola taste and the apple taste isn't like overwhelming. It's just nice.
Do you guys want to try the peach?
I do.
The doctor told me that the
Herpes are fine.
live.
Don't worry.
Yeah, that
It's
it's
good,
not
so we can share
contagious. Yeah, he said I won't pass it.
anything you
Yeah.
caught overseas is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Let me have that.
That one's very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That tastes, and I like these a lot because you can actually taste the flavor. Sometimes a lot of these seltzers are very carbonated, and
Which
kinda
I
just put
don't
them
like.
back
They're
and-
too fizzy. I feel like
too
I
much.
drink, one of the other seltzers that's out there, the fruity ones, and one
They're
they're,
not
too
real
fruity,
sweet.
they're too sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These aren't real sweet.
and
Very
they're too
good.
bubbly.
It's subdued,
And
and
that's-
they're not bubbly.
And that's what the guys really wanted. I think they did an amazing job.
The only
with the
problem with
formulation.
this is you could chug it.
I was gonna say it's very
That's-
easy.
Yeah, you
to
could
drink.
That's
fire
not
this
really-
right down.
That's not really a problem.
No, it's a problem, but it's not a problem.
Not a problem for you guys as the company. You want people to
No,
slow
well,
these things.
and we wanted this as something, it's an everyday, amazing summer drink,
It is,
like
yeah.
on the golf course, on the boat.
I mean, this
you
can
know.
quench your thirst.
Yes.
Like you're just
I was thirsty before. Now I could just keep drinking these. Not that we would ever say anything bad about them when Jason's sitting right here, but I am
Well,
being very
I'd
honest.
rather have honest.
no.
Being
I
very
got
honest.
no.
No,
I
it's
got
very
no.
good.
I
It's
got. I
very
got to
good.
be honest. Even though if I'm gonna get my neck snapped and die, I would
Like these
rather
lights
have
can
it
turn
done
off
by
when we're dead
him.
in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
So-
I'm going to throw the
I would,
switch suddenly.
Something's going on. Yeah.
No, if I didn't like it, I would say it.
We would just say, "Oh, okay.
Huh.
Well, so why don't you tell us
Well,
about
so,
your?"
why don't you tell us about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, let me put this
Let me-
down.
let me
I'm
go
actually
back-
gonna drink the warm ones when I'm done with this
I'm gonna
one.
go back to my tequila. No, so we'll put a little link in the bio
Awesome.
for the website and wherever they can find it. And then, are you crowdsourcing investment, or how do you want?
So
We could put up,
no, right now we're moving to if they go to my LinkedIn or they contact us
We'll
on the
put that in there
page,
as well.
we are doing we're still in a seed round. We're
Okay.
looking for a little bit higher level than the original crowdsourcing that we did.
Got it.
So, but obviously with with much greater opportunities to be involved with us as we
Understood.
go to the next level.
Very cool. Well, again, thank you. I don't want to hop around today. I obviously want to get to, the incident September 13th. But why don't we just Take us back to, your life growing up, your motivation behind military. I know you're from a military family, so everything from day one on, and we'll kind of just take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll gloss over my childhood. There's not, it's nothing crazy. I wasn't abused or come from this. My parents were divorced, so I guess technically a broken home, and I bounced back and forth between the two of them. But man, they took care of me and they supported me, and we didn't have a lot of money, but the one thing they did do is instill a tremendous sense of patriotism and appreciation. I came from a military family on both sides. My mom wasn't military, but my grandfather on my mom's side was. And my mom is a naturalized citizen. My grandfather was French and fought with the French in World War II. And after the war, he survived, and they went to Canada. My mom was born in Canada and didn't learn English until she was older. And then they immigrated to America, and my mom became a naturalized citizen, along with the rest of my family. So one of the things that I love about naturalized citizens, it's crazy right now. Most of our naturalized citizens are so much more appreciative and understand the foundations and the base of our country than our citizens that are born here who take it for granted. And anyways, I'm going to stay away from the politics.
So you're Canadian.
I am French Canadian on one side and Scottish on the other. Well, but I wasn't born there. I was born in America. I'm a first generation.
I thought that was like DNA stuff.
Yeah.
No.
So
thank God.
No, I grew up listening to everybody on my mom's side of the family speaking French, although my mom didn't teach us French, which sometimes I'm like, Mom, why didn't you teach us French? And my mom was like, because we're American. I was like, okay,
my father did with me.
I respect that.
My father spoke Italian before English. He wouldn't teach us Italian.
Yeah,
He just didn't want that.
I respect that. I respect that. So on my dad's side, my grandfather and great uncle both fought in World War II. My great uncle was killed. They were both pilots, and my great uncle was shot down in the Pacific and killed. I actually have the letter from President Roosevelt, like the condolence letter, framed in my office.
Oh wow!
And then my grandfather was a B-24 pilot, super decorated, flew in the European theater, Distinguished Flying Cross, Air Medals. Was actually shot down over Yugoslavia and crash landed. I wouldn't have believed this story. I would have thought like, no, my dad's just exaggerating. Crash landed in Yugoslavia and evaded back to Italy with the crew. But I have the newspaper article that tells all of this, where the local Ohio newspaper interviews him after he came home from the war. So these were the stories I grew up with. My dad was a Army airborne instructor and a rigger. He packed parachutes and, sent people out of airplanes. And that's who introduced me to the SEAL teams. From a young age, all I wanted to do was be in the military. I wanted to be a pilot originally. And then we were watching those videos on jets, man. I
don't blame you.
Yeah, Top Gun came out when I was like 11 or 12, and I was just like, I'm going to be Maverick. And but then I started learning about special operations. And when I was like 14, my dad was like, hey, you should check out these guys called Navy SEALs. He said they're regarded as some of the best of the best. They hardest training in the entire military. And I don't know what it was when he said that, because I was a runt. And I didn't play any sports at that point in my life. We lived on a farm, and I ran around and played outside most of the time. And there was just something that clicked in me. I was like, that's what I want to do. And I was like, well, hey, if I'm going to be a SEAL, I guess I got to start doing hard things. And my dad had always told me I was too small. I'm not a big guy. And I was, probably at 14, 15, I was still 100 pounds, wow. 5 feet tall. And I loved football. And my dad had always told me, you're too small to play. You're too small to play. And finally, when it clicked in me, I just told my dad, I said, I don't care what you say. I'm going out for the team. So I went out for the football team. I got my ass kicked every day. But it started teaching me about being a part of a team and working out and taking an ass kicking and getting back up and driving forward. And then I started wrestling. I joined the wrestling team. And that was another introduction to getting my ass kicked, because I wrestled at 112 when I started wrestling. And our state champions were 112 and 119.
There you go. You learn quick.
Oh, my God. Those guys would just mop the floor with me.
Yeah.
Vincent Crump was our 119 pounder, man, and he was phenomenal. And but once again, I learned to take a beating and keep coming back, keep showing up, and keep trying to learn. And I think all those things help shape me as I continue to train to get ready to go become a SEAL. I became laser focused on it. And once again in life, I am real big. Like the first framework is lead yourself. And when you lead yourself, it's about goal setting. It's about setting standards, being disciplined. It's about dealing with negativity and still being positive and driving forward. And the goal setting, it was like, hey, if I want to be a SEAL, what are the things I have to do and what can I not do? Well, what I knew I couldn't, I had to graduate high school. I had to stay out of trouble because I needed a clearance. So a lot of my friends were getting into drugs and other things. And I was like, I'm not going to touch that stuff. So those things kept me out of trouble and enabled me to train and physically get ready so that when I went to boot camp right after I graduated high school, I could qualify. We didn't have a direct pipeline to the SEAL teams back then. So it basically, the recruiter was like, here, if you want to be a SEAL, when you get to boot camp, somebody's going to walk around at some point and they're going to ask you if you want to try out for SEAL training. And man, I actually believe those dudes, but they were right. They were right. And that's exactly how it happened. We were at the pool one day and the first SEAL I'd ever met came around and said, who wants to try out for SEAL training? And I was like,
now, how many of you even knew what a SEAL was? Because you said it wasn't like we have YouTube, we watch, we understand what it's like, but from a smaller town, did most people even know what that really meant?
No, not really. I mean, by the time I went to boot camp, it was more prevalent because the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen came out, I think in 93, which is right when I graduated high school. So when I got to boot camp, definitely when I would, tell people there that I was going to be a SEAL, there was a lot of, and even in high school, my senior year, when I told people that, they'd laugh at me and be like, whatever. Because, people have this idea that SEALs are these great, big Arnold Schwarzenegger looking guys. And you'll never make it. You'll never be a SEAL. I mean, they knew enough. It was getting out there enough to know, very difficult, hardest dudes. And in boot camp, I got laughed at a lot about it. But for me, anytime you tell me I can't do something, it just fuels me even further to prove it. And I'm not an asshole about it. I'm just like, Roger that, check. And continue to drive forward. I mean, I did the test. There was probably, 12 or 15 of us in boot camp that took the test and 3 of us qualified.
What was the test?
So and it's still the same. It's roughly the same to this day. So it is a 500-yard swim, breaststroke or side stroke. You get a 10-minute rest period, and during that time, you're changing your clothes. So you get out of the pool, and you have 10 minutes to change. And then it's as many push-ups as you can do in 2 minutes. You get a 2-minute rest. As many setups as you can do in 2 minutes. You get a 2-minute rest. And then as many pull-ups as you can do. Time doesn't matter. But the moment you touch the bar, you can't let go of the bar. You can't take a hand off the bar. So, and then you get a 10-minute rest, and then it's a 1.5 mile run. When I did it, it was in Navy dungaree pants and boondockers. They were steel-toed boots.
Oh my God!
You had to do the run in. No offense to you young whippersnappers now, but you got it easy. You're allowed to run in shorts and tennis shoes.
Running in boots is miserable on its own.
Yeah, and these weren't even. Like later in the SEAL teams, combat boots are a little better for running. I mean, not much, but better than these boondockers were literally work boots. They were Navy work boots, steel-toed.
Do you remember your times? And
so I was always a pretty fast runner. I don't remember. So I can tell you roughly what my times were. You had to do the swim in less than 12:30. These are all the minimums, and I'll tell you what mine were and now where you really need to be. So you had to do the swim in less than 12:30. You had to do a minimum, I believe, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, and I think a minimum of 8 pull-ups. And then you had to do the run in less than 11:30. That's the minimums, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
you won't get selected by making the minimums.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, hell.
So why do they even have the minimum? What's the point?
It's the minimum. I guess it's the minimum qualification. I don't know why they haven't changed to make it higher. So I did the swim, and swimming was believe it or not, probably my weakest thing out of everything. So I think I did the swim in maybe 10:30 or something. I did over 100 push-ups, over 100 sit-ups, and I probably did at least 20 or 21 pull-ups, which is pretty competitive.
Yeah.
And then my run time, I was a fast runner. I think I did the run in maybe 9:30 something,
Wow.
which is in boots
That's
and
smoke.
jeans.
Wild.
Yeah. So I was super fast runner. I mean, when I got, I was running sub 6 miles. Actually, I broke 5 minutes on the mile when I was in A school.
In your boots?
No.
Okay.
In tennis shoes for that one.
But in the boots, you did 9 minutes. So that's what?
Yeah, 9:30 something.
Close to 6 miles or something
Yeah.
like that? 6 minute mile?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Impressive.
Yeah, thanks.
I
So,
get it,
and those are roughly the same today. So for any kids out there that are thinking about it, although I will say, it's probably even more competitive now to do the swim. You need to be probably at sub 11. You can be a little slower in one thing. Maybe you're a slower runner or a slower swimmer. So they'll give you a little bit of grace. But like if you're low in everything, you won't get picked.
So maybe that's why they have the minimum of like, okay, he was a slower swimmer, but he still passed the minimum, but he was a fast runner. We'll take him.
Yeah.
Is it the same for women as well?
Oh yeah.
Same. And you got to do real push-ups. And
Absolutely.
real pull-ups.
Yep.
All right. They're fair across the board.
And we've never had a woman make it through SEAL training yet. Now, obviously, it was just opened up a couple of years ago, and there have been quite a few women that have tried. I don't think any of them have actually made it to day one of SEAL training. Even in the period of there's stages of qualification. So the physical test is the minimum, and then there's other things you have to do that lead up to day one of SEAL training.
So So what you just explained was day one of even getting potentially
That's just
accepted.
to qualify.
That's just to qualify.
Yeah.
Now,
So
what happens before that?
there's the physical test. And then there is the academic. So a lot of people, and I meet these young kids who are really big on fitness, and they're blowing off their studies in school. And I'm like, hey man, you need to understand something. SEALs are smart. In training, when you make it to SEAL training, Hell Week is the number one thing that weeds people out. Number 2 is pull comp. Number 3 is academic. Dive physics and dive medicine weeds out probably 5 to 10% of every class. And the ASVAB is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. It's the test you have to take that they decide what you're qualified for to be in the military. The SEAL qualification score is the second highest score in the entire Navy. The only thing that's higher than that is our nuclear people.
Whoa.
So that lets you know how smart. And I've told these young kids that I meet, like, dude, you need to be studying. Yeah. Like you not only have to be physically tough, you have to be you have to be smart, and then of course mentally tough.
So how you qualify the physical? How much more work do you have to do to even get to potentially day one of being a SEAL?
So so when I went through, you had to go to your A school, which was your job in the Navy. Okay. That's different now. So for me, I had to complete 4 months of my Navy training program. And during that training program, continued to test. Before you went to BUDS, then there's a kind of a higher level. I believe it was a 3-mile run, an 800-yard. It was the actual SEAL physical readiness test they had us do before we started SEAL training.
Got it.
I don't think they're doing the way it works now is the kids do the initial academic testing. And then there's a psychological test now that we didn't have when I went through. And then there's the ASVAB score, and then they get put into a draft. So we have so many young kids that want to be SEALs. There's a draft now where they evaluate. So they not only look at, the hard scores, they look at, well, what else have you done? What's your aptitude? Like, what's the leadership you've done in school? What's your life experience? Have you been exposed to other cultures? Do you speak other languages? Like all these things come into play for us to pull you in and say, okay, we want this guy. We're going to send him to SEAL training. So it's pretty competitive.
Yeah, but get the cream of the crop.
I mean, my buddies and I joke, like, I don't know if I would have gotten selected.
Shit.
Thank God.
This is tough.
Yeah, kidding.
What is the psychological test like?
It's a screening test. I mean, we're trying to, and some of this I feel like is subjective, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. But obviously, we're trying to decide: what's your moral compass? Okay. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we're training people to go out and kill people and make decisions that are morally ambiguous and go against the laws. I mean, both laws and both moral code that most people live by. To go in and wreak massive violence on people and so we want to screen them that number one, we're not bringing on psychopaths. And number two, that hopefully you also aren't, that there's not some deep-seated demons that are going to take you down a path, which is a problem we've had in the SEAL teams. Combat can do, unfortunately, if you tell people to live by these standards where we're constantly flexing on, and the SEAL teams and special operations is built around, how do we operate outside of the box? How do we make things happen? And sometimes, if these are the rules and we can't get something done, how do we get outside of that? So it gives you this out of the box thinking that sometimes, obviously you come back to society and the world doesn't work that way. You can't apply that in some ways, but unfortunately some guys that would bleed over to where then we'd have, this was a real problem in the war, domestic abuse problems, drug problems, violence, assaults. So,
how do you even, like, do you know example questions they're asking?
I don't, man. I've heard, I always remember one of the questions I heard, do you like archery and stamp collecting? These are weird questions.
But I guess they know there's correlations.
So we had to take a test like that. It's 100 questions that they ask you 5 different ways. But it's the same 100 questions because they want to see if you're going to answer it in the same way. Like, as stupid as it sounds stupid, do you like your mother? Do you like your father?
Yeah.
But then they'll ask it in different ways.
Yes. Do you like killing animals for no reason? Do you like, do you play with dolls?
Yeah.
Whoa. It's just like weird psychological stuff. 100 questions, and then they reframe the question. And they ask it again to see if you're given because, somebody might have got schooled and they're just giving their answer.
No that you want to kill an animal.
Right. Yeah. And now they're asking it in a different way. And
it's very interesting.
The Navy has invested tens of millions of dollars trying to increase our graduation rate. Because SEAL training has an 80% attrition rate. So there are a lot of people in the Navy who say, well, that's a failed program. But the formula works, but they've never been able to quantify it. I think it lives within the individual. There's something in them that enables them to endure pain and discomfort longer than the average person.
Right. I guess you have more people now wanting to become SEALs. You got to make it harder and harder to become one.
The training itself physically is roughly the same. And it has been that way since the very beginning when the forefathers of the SEALs were called the Naval Combat Demolition Units. They swam across, they were called frogmen back then. They weren't SEALs. And they swam across the beaches in Normandy. One of only 3 units on the D-Day invasion that received the Presidential Unit Citation. We had 75% casualties that day. And that became the birth of the modern early day SEAL. The SEAL teams came into existence in 1962. President Kennedy wanted to expand naval special operations, and that's when SEAL Team 1 and SEAL Team 2 were commissioned.
Got it. Okay. So now you go through all these different steps to then get to, okay, you're now allowed to apply to become a SEAL. How long is that? Up until Hell Week, how long is that duration of time?
It could be a couple of years before you get, because I think it's shorter now because the difference is you had to go through your Navy A school to have that Navy job. We've done away with that now. So when guys want to become a SEAL, they'll go directly into the pipeline. You will, however long, so you'll qualify, physically, academically, psychologically. You then will be assigned to a boot camp company. There is a prep course, an 8-week prep course after that, and then you'll report to Bud. So I would say it could be as short as a year now, I'd probably believe, by the time you check in.
Okay.
Check into Buds, you have a month of pre-training, and then that starts first phase. So that starts official day 1 of SEAL training. Hell Week, when I went through it, was my 6th week of training. It has been as early as the 3rd week. I think right now it's the 4th week. But
they can just pick and choose when it.
No, it's not like they don't tell the students like you're going to know. Just over the years, it is
understood.
Moved up and down a little bit.
But this day starts Hell Week.
Oh yeah,
and you have no concept of time though, right? Because you're not sleeping. Do you really even know when day 3 of Hell Week is?
Oh yeah,
you do.
Man, trust me, the nights They are long nights. It is cold and wet and miserable, and you are praying for the sun to rise to get that warmth, because it is the coldest and most miserable. And they always have the hardest and most vicious instructors work the night shift. Our instructor, and shout out to you, Mike Mayer, out there. I'm friends with Mike now, but he was the lead instructor in charge of the midnight to 8 a.m. shift. And we called him Chief Nightmare.
Why is that?
And because he was brutal and would just you knew when he came on that the beat downs were about to get worse. It was already bad. Like you're already, I mean, it is called Hell Week for a reason. It is hell. Every day. Imagine just every day. I mean, it starts on Sunday and it goes till Friday, and you are wet, coated in sand, cold, constantly moving. During that entire week, you might get 2 to 3 hours of sleep total, and that's not together. What'll happen is they'll give you like 10 or 15 minutes here, or you'll win a race and you're allowed to get 10 minutes of sleep after the race. And it's brutal because you're so exhausted. It doesn't make you feel good. It actually makes you feel worse, because you immediately go into deep REM sleep because your body is in survival mode. So then the instructors hose you down to wake you up or kick you awake. And, you know, you're all groggy and they're screaming at you, trying to create hate and discontent, which they're very good at. So you're doing that. You're either everywhere you go, you're carrying a boat around on top of your head everywhere. If you don't have that boat on top of your head, you're either rowing in it or you're being surf tortured in the water or doing an evolution. It's not uncommon during Hell Week for your fingernails and toenails to fall off. Everyone gets massive chafing, like you will chafe holes in your armpits and in between your legs. We had a guy in our class that literally what is the rating of this?
Let it rip.
Okay. Literally, he rubbed the head of his dick off.
No, he didn't.
I remember at the end of Hell Week, it looked like a giant red bleeding mushroom.
Oh my God.
And he had gone through Hell Week like that. Like and that's common. Like many guys go bald. You'll rub holes in the top of your head from carrying this boat and the sand rubbing. And you're in the salt water. So now it adds, it burns. You'll start hallucinating. It is brutal. You lose, on average, anywhere from 60 to 80% of the class during Hell Week.
Oh, I can't imagine. What was the worst aspect for you personally? Do you like one thing come to mind?
No, I mean, it sucked, but I knew it was going to suck. I mean, there was no part of going to SEAL training that I was like, boy, this is going to be
sure.
easy.
Yeah.
So I was mentally prepared for that. I will say, and I often caution people, beware of really unrealistic expectations. Oftentimes we'll think to ourselves, hey, when this happens, everybody does this in life too. And I made the mistake of doing it in Hell Week. I had been told by a friend, hey man, if you make it to Wednesday morning, it gets easier.
Tell us about that.
And we all do this in life. We set these goals and we're like, hey, when this happens, life's going to get easier or better. And then when it doesn't, we're super let down and we lose momentum. And sometimes people will quit because they gave themselves this unrealistic expectation, which happened to me. Wednesday, what happens is theoretically on paper, I've gone back, or theoretically in real life, it does in some ways get easier Wednesday forward. But you don't realize it. Things slow down a little bit only because, individuals that have now been awake for 96 hours, like we have to slow things down. I mean, it's starting to get dangerous. Like we can't have you running through the O course full speed because your balance is off. You're all messed up. So theoretically, it does get a little easier, but you as the student don't realize it.
Doesn't matter.
So Wednesday morning, and I was like, yeah, I made it to Wednesday morning. It's all down, it's all downhill from here. And Thursday night was my hardest night of training. And I did contemplate quitting for a few minutes. Because I had, I was like, make it a Wednesday morning, it'll get easier. I'm like, this sucks.
Right. Think it easier.
Yeah. And it wasn't.
And then you had poor influence, right, from somebody that was quitting. And then you crept, their thoughts crept into your mind, right?
No, I tell other people that. I mean, I didn't.
You never had that.
I don't remember that happening. People do not quit very rarely do people quit by themselves.
Right.
They will, and I often tell people who are going to SEAL training, my 3 rules of making it through training is they're also the same rules I apply to life to people. Number 1, don't quit. Do not ring that bell. I try to explain to these young kids, everybody thinks they're never going to quit. But the problem, 80% of people quit. But it is the only thing you can control. Literally, it's the only thing you control. You can't control if you're injured. You can't control we had a guy in my class who ultimately he did make it a couple of classes later, but he was so dense. When we would do drown proofing, where you're having to swim with your hands and feet and tied and do all these different things, he was so dense that even if he filled his lungs up with water, with air as much as possible, he just sank like a rock to the bottom. The guy was just no body fat, just a brick, and he couldn't pass it. So he couldn't control that. He had to put some body fat on is literally, I think, what had to happen for him in a later class to get where he could be buoyant with air in his lungs to do the things you have to do and swim with your hands and feet tied.
That's so interesting.
So you can't control those things, but what you can control is whether you ring that bell or not. So don't ring the bell. Don't mentally quit. For most people, and even I started to do it that night on Thursday, I started to question myself, do I really want to be here? And that is a dangerous thing. And that's when people look to somebody else and be like, hey, Steve, man, this really sucks, you know? And you know, you're like, yep, it does. and I'm like, well, you know, hey man, do you want to cut out? Let's, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. You want to, and they'll try and get people to go with them. So I always tell guys, do not allow yourself to go down that path of mentally quitting, because it almost always ends to physically quitting. So you got to turn that switch back off. And then the last thing is just understand that training is designed to be as unfair as possible, which it simulates combat in life. I mean, you can do everything right and things will go wrong. And they purposely make training that way. They will tell you what the standards are. You'll meet the standard and then they'll fail you. And you can't, and you're pissed and you're like, you motherfucker. Like, you know, you're mad at the instructors, but they want to see how you're going to react to it. They want to see how you're going to deal with it.
And they make it seem like they want you to ring that bell, right?
We want to weed out people who are not, combat is intense and at times horrific, and you need individuals who can push the pain and the misery and the problems away and focus on the mission and the guys. And SEAL training is designed to show us that. We break everyone down to the most basic level, and you either have the ability to show that you are not going to quit and continue to function, or you quit and you leave, and that's our goal.
Yeah.
I mean, we want, and it is a proven formula that has worked for us.
Yeah. I remember when Ephraim came on the podcast, he mentioned how he almost didn't want to establish true friendship with people because of what you just said, that on Thursday night, if somebody came to him and it was a good friend of his and said, you know, maybe we should back out of this, he didn't want anybody to potentially influence him. So you're probably thinking of a story. So there was a guy in my class. We were friends. We went through A school together, and he was like a big brother to me. I was 18 when I started SEAL training. I graduated at 19. He was 10 years older than me. He was 28. Yes, this is a story.
And he was an awesome dude, man. The guy was phenomenal. And we were in Hell Week. We weren't in the same boat cruise. He was taller than me, and boat crews go by height. But I remember it was like Tuesday night, and we happened to bump into each other, like going to the bathroom or something. And I was like, how you doing? And he was like, this sucks. And I was like, you don't sound too good. And he was like, I don't know if I'm up for this or something like that. I could tell he was starting to mentally quit. And I was like, I need to get away from this dude. And he did. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours later, he ended up quitting. So nuts. So you make it past your grueling Thursday night. What happens at Friday? I'm assuming it's done Friday, right? What happens after that? In training or on Friday when you secure? On Friday when you secure. You get a medical check. So the first thing they do, they check your whole body, like, mushroom dick guy. I was gonna say, check your dick out. Yeah. Your body's so wrecked. They put you, typically you're put on antibiotics. They put antibiotic ointment on all your wounds. They make sure that they're checking all your vitals to make sure there's nothing out of the norm. And then you're released from, you get a brown t-shirt. So when you're in first phase, you wear a white t-shirt. That denotes you haven't made it through Hell Week. When you make it through Hell Week, you get a brown t-shirt.
Nice.
And it's a big rite of passage, man, to wear that shirt. Cause you know, if you make it through Hell Week, you actually have like a 70% chance of graduating. So
you're not done yet.
Oh, that's at the very beginning. That's at the beginning of training. You still have like 5. I mean, really, technically, you have over a year to go after Hell Week.
Okay, but it'll never reach like that threshold of intensity.
It's still very hard.
Really?
Oh, you're still getting your ass kicked. You're wet and sandy. This is why SEAL training is so hard. What people don't realize is Hell Week's at the beginning, but it's merely the first crucible. Every day of SEAL training runs anywhere from 12 to 18 hours. You are going, almost guaranteed, you will be wet and sandy at some point. There are times to go rinse off and all that. But yes. And then every week you will do a timed run, a timed swim, an obstacle course. You will do PT sessions every day, and every single one of those things every week, the times go down.
Right. Okay.
And then there's all these academic testing, there's physical testing. So that'll carry you all the way to the end of training. Once you graduate training, BUDS is like high school. So you now have a high school diploma.
Okay.
Now you got to go to college.
Yeah, college.
So you go to SEAL qualification training, which is 4 months, where now we're teaching you more advanced stuff. You graduate that, then you got to go to airborne and free fall school. You go to SEER training. You go to winter warfare training. You go to other trainings. And then finally, you know, this has probably been at least a 2 to 2.5 year cycle. Finally, then do you earn your trident.
But at any one of those times, you could fail out.
So once you graduate BUDS, it's pretty rare. You know, at that point, you know, you're pretty much in. Now, we have had guys, if anything happens before you actually get your trident, they'll get rid of you pretty quickly. So there are, like, I had a friend when I went to college. There was a kid there that we tried to help become a SEAL, and we made mistakes. We were SEALs already. When I went to college, I was an enlisted guy that went to school, and there were 4 or 5 of us who were already SEALs, and we created a group to train the young midshipmen who wanted to be SEALs. And there was a group of 10 or 12. We were the Spec Ops Club. And one of the kids was doing really well. Well, I think the mistake we made, we treated him like he was one of us. Like, we all hung out together. And I think we probably should have treated him like he was a nug and not allowed him into our circle, because when he went to SEAL training, I talked to some instructors and he did really well, but they hated him. And I asked why. And they said, well, he acts like he's already made it. You know, all through training, they just said he's arrogant. He's got a chip on his shoulder, but they couldn't get him to quit. Well, he graduated BUDS and he was in college, SEAL qualification training, and he broke a rule. And that was the ammo they were looking for, and they got rid of it.
That's all I needed.
Yep.
Wow.
It's true. Is it true that physically they'll never force you to quit, right? Like, you have to quit on your own?
Correct. They will not. So there are different ways. So number one, they won't, if they don't like you, they can't just kick you out of training. They have to have a reason. So either you quit, or you break a rule, or you don't pass something physically or academically.
Got it.
Now, there are plenty of, we had an officer in our class who had he butted heads with one of the instructors, and the instructor decided, like, I'm going to get rid of this guy. And they had him, we were less than a month from graduation. And we were out on San Clemente Island, and our barracks are up on the top of this hill. The beach is probably, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards down the hill. And the instructor told this officer, you're going to get wet and sandy every hour on the hour from now until the end of training. So every hour he had to run the 400 yards down the hill, get wet, coat himself in sand, run back up the hill. So it's probably 10 or 15 minutes at least, 20-minute evolution. And it was every day, every hour on the hour. So no matter what we were doing in training, he would have to run down, get wet and sandy. At night, he would come up and he would sleep in the middle of the barracks. He would try and get like 10 or 15 minutes of sleep. We tried to give him some warm clothes, but he lasted, 3 or 4 days. And
how do you not go crazy?
Well, there are guys who have come under the brunt of the instructors. There's a guy, shout out Sean Brennis, who's out there, man. Sean was a physical beast, and the instructors didn't like him. He made it. They couldn't get him to quit. They did all kinds of things like that, but Sean would not quit. He was a Boston, South Philly, just knuckle dragging, hard as nails dude. And same to the kid that I was talking about. He made it. He made it through SEAL training, but he went to one of our advanced training things. He did something wrong, and they kicked him out. But they told him, they said, "Hey, we're either going to kick you out or you have to go all the way back and do all of SEAL training again." And he did it.
No way.
He's one of the few people that did all of SEAL training twice.
That is crazy.
That's a beast.
I was going to ask, like, do they give you like a rite of passage? You don't have to like go through buds again if you don't make it after the fact. That's insane.
If you get rolled, you roll back, or like I was rolled in dive phase. So there are wickets you make it through. If you make it through Hell Week, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. If you get rolled, you'll start after Hell Week.
What does it mean, get rolled?
It means that either you get injured. I got injured, so I was rolled back because of that. So people will be rolled. You can be performance rolled, meaning like I talked about the guy who sunk when he was drown proofing, when he was doing the hands and feet tied thing. Mm-hmm. He was a good student, so he was performance rolled. Understood. So they rolled him back and they said, okay, hey, man, you got to put some fat on and you got to work on your drown proofing, and we're going to move you into another class.
Is it true they
or injury?
Do they physically drown you, or that's not true?
That's not true. Lots of guys will pass out underwater in evolution.
That's not uncommon.
That's not uncommon.
Really?
Yes.
And they just resuscitate.
We bring you back up and bring you back to, and let's go.
So the physical aspect makes a lot of sense, right? This is like you're preparing for literal war. How are they mentally? Are they like mentally breaking you down? Because you do have to become like a different type of human to be able to go to combat and kill other humans. Are they doing that sort of like psychological, mental preparation with you?
They create a lot of chaos, and you've got to function in chaos. And I already told you about how things are very unfair. They'll tell you, "Hey, here's the standard. This is what you need to do. You'll meet the standard, and then you'll fail. You'll be failed for meeting the standard." That happens a lot. That's where they're mentally conditioning you. Conditioning you for combat itself doesn't really start to happen. Maybe in our college level SEAL qualification training, you're now starting to get into close quarters combat, land warfare, where we're now starting to engage targets. And we will, I don't know if they're doing an SQT, but by the time you get to your first platoon, now you're starting to move into, we're flowing through targets and you're engaging realistic, lifelike targets. And we also do real world live. So one, the shooting, we're next to each other, close quarters combat, you guys do it too. We're literally shooting next to each other, and we create very complicated scenarios where we want to drive individuals, where we have potential blue on blue, meaning guys will come in on each other. And obviously it's very dangerous. We have to control that training, but we're doing it to simulate combat as much as possible. We also do real world where, we use simunition, so paint rounds. So it's like real bullets, and they hurt. And then we have dudes in Redman, so they're in like fight suits. So now you're coming into a room and you're engaging someone, and literally you're either shooting them or like you and I were talking at breakfast about the kid me and a teammate got into a wrestling match with on target. Yeah.
What about like I'm just assuming like you're going against the enemy, and this enemy is horrible. Are they showing you like examples of how bad? Like, are they showing you videos or pictures? Are they explaining like how gruesome these people are?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because they want you to somewhat hate these people, correct?
I don't think that is the goal. I mean, it's merely you have an enemy, because we're not training for. I mean, yes, in some ways, 9/11 we became focused obviously on Al Qaeda and Islamic extremism. But who knows who we're going to be fighting?
Yeah.
So our tactics are designed. It's not, we don't build our tactics around you do this. Now, granted, when you get on the ground in country, you may adjust some things based on things we've seen.
Okay. Yeah. So they're not like pumping you with like almost propaganda of you have to go.
Isn't there a lot of like as far as the brotherhood, the guy next to you, you're fighting? Because I remember it was always like it was a big thing with me, like. if I couldn't help another guy, if I couldn't help a guy, and my understanding of like SEALs, it's a team.
Yes.
It's the guy next to me. Like, listen, I'm in this fight, but I gotta, this guy is, I'm fighting for him.
Right.
And that's what it's about.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that's built into every aspect of training. We do a lot of down man drills. You only move as fast as the slowest man. You always have a swim buddy next to you. We never leave a man behind. All those things are drilled into you. It's part of our ethos, and we train that way. I got myself in trouble as a young officer. I won't get into all the details. We don't have the time, but the bottom line, I was making poor decisions as a leader, and it all culminated with a bad call on a mission. And that bad call was driven by my desire to get in the fight, which was an individualistic thing. As a matter of fact, my nickname became Rambo Red after that. And Rambo was an individual. We are all about the team. So it did a lot of damage to my reputation and almost got me kicked out. So it's a perfect example of not looking out for the team. I was looking out for my own personal glory and whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Now, when do you graduate? What year did you graduate?
1995.
Okay. And now how quickly are you then seeing and getting deployed?
It's going to be, so, I mean, you could potentially jump into a platoon that is getting ready to go out the door. That's pretty rare. Typically, they want new guys to do, we do cycles. I won't get into all the details, but the bottom line is there is basically a multi-year cycle of training.
Okay.
So you get assembled as a platoon. They decide, the leadership decides where you're going to go, what teams, and you typically, as a new guy, will be assigned to a team that's in the very beginning of that cycle. So they're in the training. Usually the beginning is all personal training. So we're sending guys out to sniper school, breacher school, whatever individual training the platoon needs. Then they move into training as a platoon and unit level training. And then it moves into mission prep. We're now starting to bring full mission profiles, and we're flying all across the country doing missions in mountains and, maritime and jungle and whatever it is. And then, that leads up to a deployment.
Got it.
So it's probably, as a new guy, it's probably going to be, I reported to my first SEAL team in, February of 1996. 96. Did I deploy in 96? I might have deployed. We might have just done a 6-month workup, and then we were out the door.
Where'd you go?
South America.
Right. And you started there. How long were you in South America for?
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you there for?
We were doing counter drug. Most of the stuff we were doing was counter drug. We were either working with, the United States of America does a lot where we're working with other nations who are friendly to us, and we do training with them. It's nation building. We're building relationships and things like that. So some of that training was that. Some of it was the drug war was still pretty heavy. Very heavy in the mid 90s. So we were doing a lot of counter drug stuff in Colombia and Peru.
Who were you dealing with typically, the cartel?
We were the cartel and the guerrillas in Colombia.
Okay,
so we were
understood.
Targeting. So yeah, and there were terrorist organizations there. I mean, Peru was Sendero Luminoso. In Colombia, it was definitely the cartels and the FARC.
That probably got pretty nasty, no?
Yeah. I mean, it was a dangerous place to be, Colombia and Peru at that time. Although, it's funny when you're young, you sometimes you don't recognize the dangers. I mean, I'm sure you could appreciate that. For me, it was just amazing. Like, man, I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid, and you're giving me guns and like sending me into these far off places to do cool things. Like a
22-year-old SEAL.
And I learned Spanish. So I spoke Spanish, and a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid that spoke Spanish. I killed it down there. My wife laughs at me. She's like, "You were a man whore." I was "What?" Yes.
So this is during your party days. You're having fun.
It was during my party days, man. Yeah. We had a good time, man. It was a lot of fun, and there was not a whole lot going on in the world. So I will say, it was very rare that individuals did real world things back then. We were doing some stuff in Colombia where we were at this outpost in southern Colombia that almost got overrun. It took fire one night. And that was probably little did I realize back then, that was probably the closest to real world that many of us had gotten into. And I remember like our XO who was there was like, should we put him for a combat action ribbon? And we were all like, we weren't in combat. They just shot at us. That's nothing. Yeah. And it's funny, fast forward to the war today, the requirements to get a combat action ribbon are you are behind enemy lines and there is a high propensity for contact with the enemy. Well, we definitely met that criteria in Colombia. But
America as a whole, what were we hyper-focused on in the late 1990s as far as like potential worldly threats other than what you were doing?
So back then, I mean, I think that you were coming off the Cold War. Mm-hmm. So there was still kind of a focus on that. And then it was more focused on, obviously the drug flow into the country. So there was a big focus on countering that. But yeah, a lot of the stuff we were doing, we didn't have a very clear enemy at that point. Like right now, if you look at where we're at, terrorism is still an issue, but I would say that's in some ways fading a little. Terrorism will always be a problem.
Sure.
But now it's large nation state actors once again. So China is doing everything they can to destabilize America. They're stealing our technology. They're building their military at an exponential pace. They are building out the islands in the South China Sea. They are, in my opinion, they're just waiting for when they feel like it's the right moment to take Taiwan. And China would like to establish themselves as the global dominant hegemon and destabilize the U.S. to do that. So they're a major threat. Russia still is a threat. North Korea is, unstable and a threat. Obviously, Iran was a threat. I think we pushed with the help of the Israelis, we pushed Iran back probably for at least a decade, if not more.
Okay. So would you say it was almost like a slow period?
Yes.
Okay.
It was. And we weren't really focused on, we were training, but the prospect of war was not like, oh my God, something's going to happen. That's why 9/11 was such a shock.
Yeah. Well, that's what John was saying, right? That if communication was like it was today,
yes,
that probably would not have happened.
It wouldn't have happened. Well, and we spoke about it in another podcast, how the different agencies never talk to each other.
That's right.
And the communication breakdown, where, local police, state police, intel and different federal, they weren't communicating. And all of a sudden, you get two towers hit.
Yep. It was same in the military. The branches, even though Special Operations Command was stood up in 1980, 82, I believe, and all the Special Operations Forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, were all under the Special Operations Command. We still didn't communicate and work together well. It wasn't until 9/11 that there was so much work. As a matter of fact, we all kind of competed for jobs and would, step on each other.
Yeah, that competition of I want to do it, I want to solve it, I want to, whatever.
So we're not going to talk to you because we don't want to give you the chance of being involved. We want it. And 9/11 changed all that. There was so much work. We all had to start working together. And that was a great thing. I mean, intel collaboration, intel development, the military started things that maybe were only agency driven pre 9/11 now started to flow where both the military and even, federal agencies were starting to do more.
Now, where I have a question is, as far as like the CIA, you always see in the movies, you'll have SEAL teams, special operations, and then there's this CIA guy, not civilian, but CIA, talking, has information, and was that like a real component of like a lot of things that happened, or is that just like movie?
No. I'll just say that there is a collaboration that occurs with some of our, national agencies and the military.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
It's a fine answer for us. Where were you on 9/11?
I was at school. So I got, I was an enlisted SEAL from I came in the Navy in 92. So 2000, I was an instructor at SEAL Team 4, and I got selected for a commissioning program, and I started school. I checked into school, Old Dominion ROTC, on July of 2001.
Oh, wow.
And obviously 9/11 happened only a couple months later. So I was actually I had left my first class of the day, and I was coming over to, I came to the student center to get a cup of coffee. And the kid was like, he handed me my coffee all nervous and like, the world's coming to an end, man. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon's on fire. And I was like, that's weird. Let me go check this out. And about that time, my best friend, a fellow SEAL, we had been at SEAL Team 4 together. He showed up, and we grabbed our coffee and headed over to the student center where the TV was on. And we literally watched everything. We saw the second plane hit the South Tower. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at it and I'm like, we're going to war, bro.
Yeah.
So we left. Kind of crazy. If a couple days later, I drove back to my old SEAL team. Now, I don't know the exact date. It was a couple of days, maybe 3 days, but I was wounded. So 9/11 happened on September 11th. I would be wounded on September 13th. Mm-hmm. So I almost wonder if it was September 13th, 2001, that I went back to my old SEAL team, to my old commanding officer, and said, hey, I want out of this commissioning program. I want back to the SEAL team.
You
I know you guys are going to war. Yeah. And he was probably one of the most legendary, respected SEAL leaders we had, our commanding officer. And he said to me, Red, here's the deal, man. This war is going to go on for decades. He said that on 2 days after 9/11. He said, this war will go on for decades. He said, go back to school. We're going to need good leaders.
Wow. So you went back to school?
I did.
And then how long until you actually got deployed?
I graduated in May of 2004 and was commissioned. Bobby and I commissioned together. I went East Coast, he went West Coast. And both of us I deployed to Afghanistan we went to Germany first. So we were part of the, my troop was part of the Operation Red Wings troop. So Red Wings is the Marcus Luttrell lone survivor story. So I was originally in Echo Platoon, which Mike McGreevy and several of the guys killed on our helicopter were from Echo Platoon.
Oh, wow.
My boss was Lieutenant Commander Eric Christensen, who was also killed on the helicopter. I got moved from Echo Platoon after a couple of months into Foxtrot Platoon, our sister platoon. So we were a troop that worked together. So we did all our training together and everything. Well, when we deployed, Foxtrot went to Europe, and we stood one part of the mission, and Echo went to Afghanistan. And then we did what was called a rotate in place. So each platoon would do. It was one of the things the leadership wanted to do to try and make sure that all SEALs were combat proven and had combat experience. And we also recognized that the longer you have someone in combat, the higher the likelihood that they start to get lackadaisical. So by rotating, it kept guys fresh. Right. So we were supposed to rotate into Afghanistan the very beginning of July. Well, Red Wings happened on June 28th.
And you were supposed to be part of that platoon.
Yes. So weird how God works. I don't want to say I'd be on that helicopter. Who knows? But I don't know. I lost several friends. Mike McGreevy was the OIC, who was an amazing SEAL. Mike had actually come to my house before I commissioned and said, hey, man, I want you to be my second officer in charge, to work directly under him. Eric was killed. Jacques Fontaine, Jeff Lucas, and Jeff Taylor were all part of our troop. So these were all the guys we trained directly with. And then obviously the other guys were from SDV-1 and SDV Team 2, Marcus, Mike Murphy, Danny Dietz, and Matt Axelson, along with Dan Healy, James Suh, and the other guys that had been augmenting.
Now, are you in that exact night? Are you in communication with them?
No. I mean, we talk to those guys on a regular basis. I mean, we would, call them and what's going on, give us updates. We were doing our own things in Germany on standby, but we were gearing up to head to Afghanistan. We were doing all our packing. We were getting ready. They were they were coming to Germany. And I remember walking into the platoon space that day, and the guys were all crowded around the radio. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're like, one of our helicopters got shot down on a mission. And what do we know? We don't know anything. So I remember going to our intel department, like, "What do you know?" And we don't know anything. And shortly after that, started to develop Marcus's emergency radio was pinging. So that let us know for the first time that, hey, we got a guy on the ground. So that led to a spin up of other forces. Several of our guys headed to Afghanistan immediately. Myself and other guys stayed behind to continue to pack and for us to go to Afghanistan. But then the details started to come. Marcus was recovered. We learned that everybody was killed on the helicopter. So they had recovered some Rangers and some more SEALs got in there, some of our guys, to recover the body and weapons and all that. Marcus flew back to Lawnstool along with Danny Dietz and Mike Murphy's bodies, and myself and a couple of other guys went to Lawnstool to meet them, and we stood the watch for Danny Dietz and Mike Murphy. And I met Marcus for the first time then, and then we went back to Germany. I think the next day we probably flew to Afghanistan. And then Matt Axelson's body still had not been recovered. I think it would be 3 days when we got into Afghanistan before the guys came back and they recovered Matt Axelson. And that's when we had the first memorial ceremony for everybody that'd been lost. We had the ramp ceremony for Matt, and then the full-blown memorial ceremony for all our guys we lost.
Godspeed to those guys. Oh my God.
Yeah. How accurate does the movie depict the reality?
Some things are accurate. Some things are Hollywooded up for drama. The debate about the decision, and it's a big debate, the decision about, what do they do with the goat herder that compromised them? That there were some things about that weren't factual. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. And then at the end of the movie, when they recover Marcus and they make this big gunfight scene, that never happened.
Never happened.
I mean, all the gunfights, everything else about it is pretty realistic. I actually feel like the gunfight scenes in the movie are very realistic. I've only watched it basically 2.5 times. I watched it for the official screening when they released it on the East Coast. I got invited. I watched half of it at a screening in Houston and ended up leaving and going drinking myself stupid. And then Memorial Day several years ago, I watched it with my family. I wanted my family to see it and understand what some of these guys went through and what, in some ways, I guess I had gone through. But in the movie, I thought did a pretty good job. I mean, it's not totally accurate, but I think it did a pretty good job of showing that.
Is it harder to watch with your family than by yourself?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard movie to watch, period. I mean, it's just,
it's a hard
these
movie
are
to watch.
my friends.
I gotta tell you, I've watched it a couple of times and I lose it.
Yeah, it's a hard movie to watch. I think for a lot of people, they're disassociated. They're not connected to it. They've never been in a gunfight. They don't, there's no, to them, it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's a story. I think those of us who have seen people shot and seen violence and you've lost friends, it's a hard movie. And for me, I mean, I knew these guys and they show all them at the end of the movie.
It's horrific. Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't know how you even looked at it. I mean, God bless them. That's all.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first introduction to combat. Like, welcome to Afghanistan. 11 of your teammates were burying.
How do you even move past that?
I mean, it's our job, you know, although I think all of us wanted revenge, which was really challenging on that deployment because there was also political, wars are very political always. You know, freaking politicians send young men off to war and, you know, we're the ones who are dying and trying to make decisions. And even though we see what's happening on the ground, frequently political decisions are influencing, even if it's not correct. Which has happened throughout history. So even though we knew there was a bunch of bad guys and we wanted to go after those bad guys, what was starting to happen was the U.S. and the Afghan government at the time had decided they wanted to scale back operations. So we were frustrated because we weren't doing anything. We wanted to take the fight to the enemy. We wanted a revenge after Red Wings. So that was kind of an interesting, I won't, you know, all of this is in my book, The Trident, but I think it led to all of us being frustrated. We ended up flying down to Kandahar, which is in southern Afghanistan, and conducting operations down there. And I think all of us wanted to get in the fight and have revenge. And I had been on the periphery. We conducted missions down there. I think we did, you know, I don't know, at least maybe 15, 20 missions down there. And that led to the bad call I made on that mission. I wanted to get in the fight. You know, I was in an overwatch position. We had guys in a gunfight down on the ground. And I made the decision to go down into that valley and try and support them, which was not a good decision. It was a bad decision.
Why?
For a number of reasons. There were a lot of tactical. One, you had multiple moving elements. You never want that. You only want one moving element at a time because now it creates a lot of problems on the battlefield, especially. And the biggest problem why is I was not aware that they were getting ready to call in an air mission. So when we call in an air mission, we have to know where everyone is at all times so that we don't blow up our own people. And when I made the decision to go down into that valley against, you know, the guidance of my senior chief, who he and I didn't get along, it delayed that air mission for almost 30 minutes, which is an eternity in a gunfight. And I'm very fortunate that no one was killed or injured because of that decision. But it definitely killed my professional reputation.
So like you said, the net result wasn't anything drastically negative based on your decision, correct?
Well, I mean, guys were like, kick that guy out. I mean, that's pretty negative.
Yeah, right. But the actual outcome of the
no, and actually, it's a miracle. We're super fortunate. I mean, that there were cave complexes. So we were in a valley complex that probably the high ground was at least 1,000 feet above the ground.
Wow.
And within those walls were fighting positions and caves. That's what the guys were doing. They were sweeping through this valley and blowing up caves and clearing stuff. And we were the Overwatch. So it's a miracle when we came down that, you know, we didn't get below enemy fighters who would have popped out of a cave and just smoke checked us. I mean, I don't know, maybe all of them were engaged in what was happening on the ground, but I'm super fortunate because I put my machine gunner at risk and myself at risk. But anyways, no, nothing negative really happened.
Good.
We managed to get back out the other side of the valley and regroup. And then... And like I said, I've said this before on other podcasts. If I had owned it, if I had just said, wow, that was a really bad decision and owned it and said I would never make that decision again, the results probably wouldn't have been bad. I mean, no one's perfect. People don't always make the best decisions. But I fought against it. I was like, I did the right thing. Yeah. You know, you guys are all getting on me. It's because you don't like me. It's because me and my chief don't get along. And me pushing back, I think, caused a more drastic response to guys like, get rid of that dude.
Yeah. What year is this? How much?
2005.
Also, it's very recent or close to the incident.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Red Wings happened in June. So which only further exacerbated things. I'm sure my leadership was like, man, we've already lost guys. We don't need this young junior knucklehead officer making decisions that's going to get other guys killed.
But that's why you're probably so emotional because it's still so new for you.
Yeah. You know, it was, I mean, I was making decisions driven by me. I saw a shortcut. Man, I'm going to come down. I'm going to be the hero. You know, awards and parades and all that bullshit.
That's really going on in your head.
No. I mean, I don't know if that was going on in my head. I think it was just more, I want to get in the fight. Here's an opportunity to do that. I mean, I was aggressive. Combat is, it's a balance, I often talk to people about, even in life, taking a tactical pause. Sometimes we say we need to let the battlefield develop, because sometimes you'll make a decision too quickly. Like in the case that I did, we had air support that was ready to go. If I had waited a few more minutes to navigate through this and confer with my teammates, I wouldn't have made that decision, because this other opportunity, which is better, the big guns in the sky will always outweigh the little guns on the ground.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
How often, is combat a day-to-day thing, or are there days that are a little more lax?
There are days that are a little more lax, and it depends. So in the first parts of the war, from the parts that I experienced, so probably up until 2010, it was all direct action missions, meaning we were hitting targets.
Right.
So typically the way that works, you live on a secure base, and then, so you're able to get a break because you're within a base of, Marines and Army kids who are guarding this base, and there are walls, and, there's chow halls. And I mean, there's some semblance, in some ways, of normal life. Although typically, it's not like you had days off. I mean, every day we slept during the day and we worked at night. So typically I'd get up at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, grab my cup of coffee, and all the leadership would meet at, 4:30 or whatever it was. And we'd get a mission brief. Hey, there's a mission tonight. Or, hey, there's a mission possibly pending. We're on standby. Or, hey, nothing's happening tonight. We would do 80 missions over that deployment. This was Iraq. So we would do 80 missions over that deployment, which was a lot.
That sounds like a lot.
So if a mission was a go, typically we'd go grab, dinner or breakfast for us, but dinner, because that's what was being served. And then we'd come back and start doing mission planning. So we'd start prepping for that mission. And, usually you would leave, sometime in the night, and you'd go hit that target. And most of the time you were coming back right as the sun was coming up, and you'd go to bed and rinse and repeat.
So there were several major missions leading up to September 13th, 2007.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of missions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and some were, the thing is, not every mission is a gunfight. As a matter of fact, most missions were not. Or I don't know, 70% were not.
Really?
Yeah, because our goal was to capture people. I mean, there were capture kill missions, but our goal is to capture people. You can't get information out of dead people. Or it's very difficult to. You're now having to look at evidence and everything else.
Explain. You were telling me off camera how the overall sentiment towards the United States from the people in Afghan. What was that like? Because you mentioned 70% of them liked you guys, but then there was a 30% that were sympathetic towards Al Qaeda and such.
Yeah. So in both Iraq and Afghanistan, both of these countries have been under rule by other places for hundreds of years. So, although they can't figure out how to rule themselves either. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it created a messy situation, but I think there's no doubt we did more good than bad. And that's what's frustrating to see in both Iraq and Afghanistan, that our nation was not committed, and the American people, we weren't committed to win the war and actually turn it over. It was like, we're losing too many people, which the reality was, in the entire war from 2001 to, I dare say, 2021, 20 years, when we tried to say everything was done, we only lost, and this is, I have a lot of friends in this number, but it was roughly maybe 7,500 people. To put in context, we lost 52,000 in Vietnam. World War II was like 250,000,
right,
which these are smaller numbers. The Russians have lost over 1 million soldiers in the Ukraine war.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I think Russia in World War II lost like 3 million.
I did know that.
So our numbers are relatively small. And I think this is something for the American people. Now, granted, our political leadership, don't commit us to wars that aren't just. I feel like the war in Afghanistan was justified. I don't know about the war in Iraq. There's a lot of ambiguity around that. I will say as a military member, we fully believe that there are weapons of mass destruction. I saw some of that intel that we believe that. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we went there, and I feel like we should have been committed to do what we could to win, and unfortunately, we didn't. We 2010, we pulled back and we turned it over. So, coming back to your question, what did the people think? Well, there were a lot of things we did good. I mean, we built schools and we enabled voting and we enabled these things that many of those people had never had. I mean, in Afghanistan, you had So Afghanistan used to be a more progressive country when you looked at Islamic countries. Back in the 70s, they were actually really progressive. There was filming and there were women in leadership positions. And then this religious rule came in that led to the Taliban taking over, and all of that went away. So when we came in, a lot of those things started to come back. So there were women in leadership positions, there were women in political positions, women in the military, and all of that went away when we pulled out. And that's the one that frustrates me the most. I mean, you're kidding me? We turned this country back over to the same assholes we were fighting when we started.
It's like all that work for nothing.
Yeah,
that's horrible. Insane.
Horrible.
Insane.
Yeah.
And for all you progressive people out there that are like, we women's rights and all your DEI bullshit, none of you were vocal about all the women and homosexuals that were killed in Afghanistan when we pulled out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you're so contradictory to what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you want to stand on this soapbox, but here was a situation that the American people should have said, hey, we need to, yes, it's messy. Yes, it's hard. Yes, we've lost some young Americans, but, unfortunately, we've made this commitment and now we need to follow through. I feel like what we did in Afghanistan did more damage to our national intelligence collection and relationships in the world. I think it'll take decades to undo that, because who is ever going to want to work with us again? Hey, Johnny, I know you've been in Afghanistan your whole life, man. Hey, man, will you help the U.S.? I'll give you some money and, you can work for me. Oh, no, bro, I saw what you guys did there. Like, I'm never working for you guys. And we rely on that in nations around the world. We build relationships with people, and that's how we get things done on the ground. That's what intelligence collection is. It's like sources.
What do
you guys call them?
CIs.
CIs, yeah.
When you say, no, I saw what you guys did in Afghan, what are you referring to?
We left them there.
We turned our backs on them. Yeah. In so many ways. I mean, so many of our Afghan interpreters and people who served alongside us, who literally sacrificed their lives. And I mean, many of them, if the Taliban found out that they were working with the Americans, they would try and kill them. They would frequently go kill their families. And many of them continued to work with us for this belief in a future, freer, better Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is messy. All those countries are messy, tribal influence and all these things. So I'm not going to say, there are a lot of people that say you could never create a democracy in those places. I don't know if that's true. I think we created a better life, and maybe there was a compromise system. Could we have been more creative? But the answer definitely wasn't turning our back on them. And I thought it was such a huge strategic mistake to just give it all up. Like, we had established Bagram, and this started to become all these people. They're like, hey, if we take this land, we're invaders, and what do they call colonialism or whatever.
Colonizers,
yeah. So
colonizers.
Yeah. So they were like, if we take this land, that's what we are. And I'm like, you know what, man, we laid so many of our American service members to rest in Afghanistan that, and we tried to fight for this country. Like, guess what? We're going to take this land. Bagram's ours. And in return, we're going to help you fight the war, because we gave them all this equipment. We turned it over to them, but they don't know how to wage First World War. They don't, no matter how much we train them, which is why when the Taliban swept back through, those dudes folded like lawn chairs.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't have our guys to be able to help coordinate air assets and stuff from the air. So we should have maintained a presence in Bagram. We should have kept some special operations teams that, hey, Afghans go out, wage war. If you get in trouble, we're going to help you.
But stay how long? Forever? Like, how long do you think it really takes?
I would have maintained that presence for as long as possible.
It was strategic too. That air base was strategic.
Oh, I would have parked strategic bombers there. We're right at China's back door. Like, China, you want to continue to flex against us?
You would have stayed there till today.
Oh, I would have had bombers there forever.
Yeah, right.
I would have maintained that position in the Eastern Hemisphere, knowing what a threat China is. But everybody was afraid of that. You know, oh, we don't want to upset China. You know, they're not our friend.
Yeah.
Like, all you people who think you can hug people into, I hate to tell you, there are people who, I mean, it's an unfortunate part of humanity that one person will take something from another person by force. Ultimately, you know, we can talk till we're blue in the face, but if you have something that I want and you're not willing to compromise with me, ultimately, you know, it's human nature. Somebody's going to take it. It's why we have wars.
And I would assume the overall sentiment, well, let me ask you, is the overall sentiment towards American leaning more towards hatred than not? Like, these other countries do not like us?
I don't know. I haven't been abroad since I left Iraq. I mean, I went to England, then Mexico.
I'm not talking about civilians liking or disliking. I'm talking about the overall governments of other countries. Do they want to see like the overthrowing of America?
I don't think the majority. I mean, America has provided pretty amazing stability. I think a lot of countries around the world recognize what America has done throughout the world. I mean, we've elevated so many countries around the world. I mean, no country on this planet has sacrificed more of its own citizens than America has on battlefields around the world. You know, we're bold and we're brash, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think things got weird when President Obama decided to go on the apology tour. Hey, we're really sorry that America is the big, bad, ugly American. You know, I mean, okay, I get it. Sometimes we can be a little over the top, but there's also all these amazing things we've done. Our economy has helped float and build so many other economies around the world. And so I think the majority of countries like us. I think some, unfortunately, have bought in. If you go around and tell people, hey, I'm sorry, we're an asshole, there's a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, I didn't even know you were an asshole.
Yeah, you're right.
I guess you're an asshole.
Right.
So now I don't like you because you're an asshole.
Apology is so weird like that.
Yeah, and it's one thing if it's for real. It's another thing, like, it just was this weird thing that happened. And I do think that started to create this like, oh, well, yeah, maybe America is bad. And even our own citizens started to buy into it.
Of course.
Which is insanity. But I do believe there are countries who don't, you know, Russia, Putin still lives by, you know, he would like to see the unification of the old Soviet Union. He would like to see that unified, you know, and I'm sure there are some Soviets that believe in that. I think most people in the world, all they want is freedom. They want peace. They want the opportunity to be productive and take care of their families.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Everywhere around the world, I've seen that. And if their government can provide that, then they're happy. You know, if they can't, I mean, obviously, you know, Russia, there's a lot of issues. China, obviously, you know, there's a lot of subjugation of their own citizens. You know, you don't, you know, even in North Korea is the same. You know, that's, you know, communist states.
You seem to be pretty adamant about China, though.
China is the number one threat we're facing right now.
Why is that?
I don't think Russia has the capabilities to stand against us. I mean, they are a nuclear power, so that becomes a big challenge. And that is a little bit of a fear. Does Putin reach a point where he says, well, hey, I'm going to nuke you? The problem is it would be the end of Russia. And I think Putin has to recognize that. I mean, we would vaporize Russia off the map. So, and this is there is a strategy in nuclear deterrence called MAD, mutually assured destruction. So it basically means if you attack us with nuclear, we're going to attack you with nuclear, and we're both going to try and wipe each other off the map.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pretty scary shit. But
yeah,
that's, in my opinion, Russia's only card. China, on the other hand, is building up a massively capable strategic military. They have a 3 million man military, not to mention they're the largest population in the world, over 1 billion citizens. Their technology, mainly because they've stolen. So I don't want to say that China doesn't have the ability. I mean, there's some smart people in China, but they have stolen so much technology from around the world. They are the number one in any nation in the world that's stealing technology wherever they can get it. They don't build their own technology.
No.
They steal everybody else's and
Yeah.
then they rebuild it. So their AI is advancing at an exponential pace. Their military technology is advancing at a pace. Their economy is struggling. I keep reading about that. They try and project that it's strong, but I'm reading from other people that it's much weaker than what they want to project.
Sure.
But which is all the more reason why they become more dangerous, because, for a country, how do you unify a country? Like, let's go to war. Let's become the biggest and baddest out there. We're going to go after America.
Because like you said about Russia, right? That's like end of the world for them if they were to go to war nuclearly with us. China going to war with us, what does that even look like?
I mean, I think it would go back. I haven't gotten deep into the weeds on that. I know it would be a very difficult war. It would come back to maritime war. It would be like it would become a world war. I mean, that's really what would happen. It would become World War III, and it would be massive ground invasions that would occur. I mean, it's very, very difficult for them to come here. But they have the capability. I mean, China just launched their brand new carrier, which is, problem with China puts out a lot of propaganda. Mm-hmm. So is their carrier as good as what they're projecting it to be? If it is, then it is comparable to ours, to our most newest strategic carrier, the Gerald Ford.
And again, maybe I'm making this too basic, but China is coming to attempt to attack us land side. Don't we know this days in advance? Like, don't you think there's going to be some sort of deterring of that?
It would probably be a missile attack. I mean, it would be very difficult for China to fly troops through the air or troops on the ground.
Or ship them.
Yeah, overseas. It would be. I mean, I'll tell you what, man, the U.S. is uniquely positioned, probably better than almost any country in the world, with two gigantic oceans on each side to get to us. So they'd either have to come through Canada or through Mexico. And once again, we're going to see all that. So more likely, but the problem is missile technology is getting more and more advanced. This is why Trump wants to create the Iron Dome.
Great idea.
Yeah.
It really is.
You're for that?
100%. I mean,
that's how we're going to get it. You can't attack us.
Yeah.
You come here, number one, just the civilian army.
Yeah.
Good luck fighting.
Yeah.
Because everybody's coming out of their house.
Yeah. Well,
especially down by me in Ocean County.
Hope. Yeah. I'm ready.
Well, you're in Virginia, so
I'm ready. I have my I've trained my family. I have enough. Every one of my family has a primary and a secondary weapon ready to roll. So hopefully it never comes to that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I pray that I can, finish my business journey. And
I'm training Johnny too.
So
I shot my first pistol the other day.
Oh, no shit.
Awesome. That's the second time. And it was a really, really fun. I used to, my buddy has a shotgun range, so I shoot shotguns. But, your perspective is probably obviously skewed because of what you've been through, but do you really consider there to be an actual land threat of war for America?
Meaning that China or some other country would attack us, like meaning sending troops on our soil.
Correct, right?
It would not be a primary. It wouldn't be like suddenly we're going to wake up like Red Dawn and like Chinese troops are parachuting in. But it would be tiered, all of it.
Sure.
I guarantee it would start with a cyber attack or a missile attack. I mean, they will wipe out all of our communications. I mean, that's a very real threat.
Yeah.
And EAP, right? Isn't that what it is?
An EMP, well, I don't even know if they need to use an EMP. I mean, I think that cyber is reaching a point and AI is scary shit, man. I mean, we're able to, how do you penetrate networks that could sabotage and knock out entire networks?
Yeah, that's true.
So these are all the things that the U.S. is facing. And this is why, people are upset that we changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. But I applaud it. It is a mindset. It is an aggressive mindset instead of a defensive, passive mindset. And I think people don't like that. I mean, I meet people, I say the Department of War now, and they're like, and I'm like, well.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is aggressive, but war is aggressive.
How many people that have served share your mindset?
I'd say it's about 50-50, believe it or not. I think there are individuals in the military. Unfortunately, though, there are individuals in the military who who are maybe not in the military for the right reasons, in my opinion. And there are going to be some people that are offended by this comment, but I will never forget. I was before I went to school, I had to go to some Navy enlisted leadership training for making E6, Petty Officer First Class. And I was in this class. It was me and maybe one other SEAL, but all the rest were regular Navy people from all across the Navy and the Norfolk area. There were maybe 50, 60 of us in the class. And I remember we got to the class that was on combat leadership. And, this is 2000 or 99, whatever it is. And I remember there were people not paying attention in that class, and I got pissed at them and called them out. And they were like, "Look, man, we're not at war. We don't need that." And I was like, "You have no idea you are in the United States military. It is our job to wage war. It is your job to have a mindset that if you're called upon to take the fight to the enemy, you need to be. This is the most important class we have in this entire thing." And they blew it off. And I remember at least one or two of the guys in the class were from the USS Cole. And the USS Cole was hit in 2000, and 11 or 12 people were killed in the port of Yemen. And I remember thinking, man, if those guys, I wonder if any of the guys in that class were killed. I remember their names. But there are people that come into the military. The military has amazing opportunities, education, all these things, but many of them don't ever think oh man, I'll never go to war.
Sure.
Well, that's the wrong mindset. And that's why I like that Secretary Hegseth is focused on, hey, if you are in the military, you are a warrior. So you are going to meet the standard. I don't care whether you're a cook or you're, a combat medic. I don't care if you're a general or private. We're going to meet the standard and we're going to be focused on war.
And you're ready to go.
And that's why our military exists.
Right. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's very true. Take us back, if you can, to September 13th, 2007.
So super impactful deployment. I mean, amazing deployment. Like I said, probably one of the best troops I was ever with, the best camaraderie. And for me, it was a little bit of it was a redemption thing. I had screwed up in Afghanistan. I had almost got myself kicked out. I had a lot of guys who didn't trust me or believe in me, and going to Iraq and seeing a lot of combat, and I had done well, and I had my career back on track. I had put in a package to screen for our Tier 1 unit and had been approved to do that. So I was super excited, man. I was coming home. We were writing awards, all the things to prepare for the end of deployment. We were prepping to fly home. We were literally, our first wave of guys was flying within a week. And we had a lot of close calls also. There were a lot of close calls on that deployment. So we had put several missions kind of on the back burner so that when the incoming SEAL team came in, we were going to take those missions and do what we call turnover operations. And my boss had already told me, "Hey, Red, on one of these turnover ops, I'm going to have you run as the ground force commander," meaning I would have been the number one leader of everybody on that mission. Which was normally his job, but they were grooming me for that. That would be the next position for me. And I remember on that night, we were told, "Hey, the number one leader for Al Qaeda is going to be is going to be in a building in Karma, and we may be going hitting that target." And I remember my boss came up to me and he said, "Hey, Red, I know I told you were going to be GFC, but hey, I think this mission is going to be really hairy." He said, "I'm going to run as GFC." He said, I don't think it would be a good first mission for you as GFC. And I said, "Roger that, man. I appreciate that." He said, "I'm going to let you be assault force commander." So I was in charge of the actual target takedown. And the initial target we took down, the enemy wasn't there. We a lot of evidence that someone had been there, and we found weapons and explosives and other things, but they just weren't there. So we actually thought that it was going to be a quiet night. Some nights are like that.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about what was combat like. Some nights are like that. You take down the target and the enemy's not there, and you missed them. So I was sitting on the porch with my team, and our external team was finishing their search, and we had placed all the explosives and the weapons in this car, and we were going to blow up that car and call it a night. And our snipers came across and said, "Hey, 150 yards north of us, we just watched 5 individuals run out the front door and run into some vegetation across the street," which is unusual. as I'm sure you recognize,
Yeah, of
usually
course.
good people don't run and hide.
Exactly.
So, my boss came up to me and said, "Hey, Red, let's go find out who these people are." And we had seen stuff like this before. So I took my team. It was 9 individuals, um, 7 SEALs, our EOD guy, and our interpreter. So that was the total. And we moved north up into this vegetation. And I remember we pushed a gunship overhead, an AC-130 gunship, and we were talking to the gunship, "Hey, can you see anything?" "No, I just see these guys land there. Do you see any weapons?" "No, we don't see any weapons." So we start pushing in this really dense vegetation, and we're pushing up through it. We're kind of spread on line. And the gunship says, "Hey, you're going to miss these guys. You need to turn to the northeast." So we made this turn. Well, our 2 new guys and our EOD guy were off to my left. Well, I think my interpreter and then those guys. And my interpreter came up to me and said, "Hey, man, the guys are gone." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I can't hear them anymore." So we stopped and waited. I couldn't hear them. We're just kind of standing by. And suddenly they came up on the radio and they're like, "Hey, Red, we got separated. We're close to the the west side of the field next to the road." And with me was my team lead, Jay Aliason, DJ Shipley, Matty Roberts, Luke Fenner, and our Terp. And I think it was Luke or Matty who said, "Hey, I'm close to the edge of the field on the east side." I said, "Okay, hey, everybody push out. We're going to go up to the north and we'll link back up, and then we'll have the gunship guide us in and wrap these guys up." So when we were pushing out to that northeast corner, I was now out front with, I think, my interpreter behind me, and then my team lead, and then maybe DJ and Matty, and then Luke. And as Matty and Luke were stepping out, they literally stepped on an enemy fighter who was in a, kind of hidden in the vegetation. And they shot him immediately, and that started the ambush. What we didn't realize is I was now literally out front in front of this ambush line, and what we had only thought was 4 or 5 guys turned out to be maybe 12 or 15, and 2 PKM machine guns. So it's a big belt-fed weapon that immediately all of that opened up. And my first thought that I was worried about was a blue on blue. I knew that the angle of where we were and where our other guys were, my EOD and 2 guys, was directly in line with each other. So I actually, at first, I didn't know if they had engaged us. So I was yelling, "Ceasefire, ceasefire." And then I was like, "What are you?" I then kind of looked across and I could see all this muzzle flashes in the vegetation. And I realized, like, fuck, we're like being shot at. And then I yelled out to the guys, "Just know what you're shooting at." Thankfully, our new guys and our EOD guy was real smart, man. He was a great dude. And he pulled those guys back and was like, "We are not shooting." He was smart enough to recognize that they were shooting back at us. So he pulled them back and they were out of the fight. So now it became us just fighting these guys.
Just so I have a picture of it, it's almost like they were sandwiched in between you guys.
So we were the enemy. If my hand is this vegetation field, we were out front, kind of here. Our guys were over here.
Right.
The enemy was on the line.
Right.
Here.
So it's almost
we were we would have been shooting across.
So these guys stopped shooting.
Yes.
And then it was just you.
It was just
understood.
The 5 of us and our interpreter. So now there were 6 of us. So Luke, who had stepped on the enemy fighter, then got shot. He took a round below the knee, which totally almost took off his leg and cut him down. Matty had pulled back, and Matty then ran forward to get Luke and started dragging him back. I guess I didn't see this. I guess DJ saw it. Luke pulled out his pistol and was trying to engage guys as Matty was pulling him back, and Matty was shot multiple times while he was pulling Luke back, but managed to get him back to a large tractor tire behind us, about 15 yards back. And then there was one tree. Everything else was like empty Iraqi desert. So DJ fell back behind the tree. My team lead and the interpreter fell back behind the tire. Matty managed to drag himself and Luke behind the tire after Matty had been shot multiple times. I was out front still trying to lay down fire when I got caught across the body armor and took 2 rounds in the left elbow. Well, I didn't know it was 2 rounds at that time. I just knew I'd been shot, which I actually thought my arm had been shot off. If you ever hit your funny bone, it kind of felt like that, but times 1,000. I felt like I had been electrocuted, like in the elbow. Like I just felt like this shock of electricity travel up my arm and like spike me in the back of the head. And I remember reaching over to my arm and I couldn't feel it. So I think it probably just caught on my gear, like my radio was here. So it probably was resting, but I had no feeling. And I was like, holy shit, I just got my arm shot off. So I kept shooting and then turned. I think I took a knee and I turned to look back and the guy said, my team lead said, yeah, I saw you go down and then get up. And then I tried to run back to where those guys were. And probably prior to that, I'd been shot more times, but it was body armor. I took my left night vision tube, got shot off. I took rounds off my gun. I took a round off my right side plate. So when I turned to move back to them, that's when I caught a round from behind that hit me right in front of the ear, traveled through my face, took off my nose, blew out my right cheekbone. It vaporized my orbital floor. It broke all the bones above my eye. What was left of my cheekbone broke and kicked out to the right. It broke the head of my jaw and it shattered my jaw to my chin and it knocked me out. The guy saw me fall and thought I was dead. So probably unconscious 5 to 10 minutes. This gunfight now is happening directly over me. So I came to and recognized like, hey man, you're still in this gunfight. Like, and I knew I was all messed up. And I knew like you're going to bleed out and die because I thought my arm had been shot off still. And now I realize, yeah, hey, you've been shot in the face. So I came up on the radio and called out to my team lead and said, Jay, how long till the medevac? He's like, Red, you're still alive? I was like, yes. How long to the medevac? And he was like 5 minutes, which it would end up being probably 15, 20 minutes. The whole gunfight we estimate lasted 35 to 40 minutes.
Oh my God.
So they had to win the gunfight. So they couldn't just run out and get me, which I knew. And he called for a fire mission initially from the gunship, but we were so close that they would have killed us. And that's what they told him. They said, you got to figure out a way to move back. You guys are extreme danger close. And so they continued fighting. I came up again after a while. Jay, how long to the medevac? He's like 5 more minutes. So I was just focused on like, you're out of the fight, bro. Like your job is to survive. Like stay awake, stay alive. That's your job. Like do not go to sleep because everything wanted to go to sleep. It's like the tiredest I've ever been. I can't even describe it. Like all I wanted to do was shut my eyes and just like, let me just take a break for a minute. But I knew that if I did, I'd never wake up again.
What are you thinking about during this?
In the beginning, I was kind of angry. I was angry that I allowed us to get into this situation. I was angry. I was like, you're going to die here. And I was angry that the enemy would have the satisfaction of killing me. That kind of pissed me off. And then, as I was bleeding out more and more and the reality like, hey, you're not going to make it home, I started thinking about my wife and kids and I was like, you're not gonna, all these things you're going to miss. I remember thinking it was September. We're really big into Halloween. And I was like, I'm going to miss Halloween. I'm going to miss Christmas. And that sucks. That was like a sad thought. And I called out to God. I was like, Lord, I need your strength to come home. And I felt strength. Like I can't describe it. I talk in churches about this at times. But I immediately had energy. And I was able to stay awake and focus. And I don't know. I just knew like, you're going to make it. Stay awake, stay alive. You're going to make it. They finally got approval. Jay called the gunship again and said, hey, look, if you don't bring in this fire mission, no one's going to be left. He's like, we're running out of ammo. I got guys bleeding out and dying. Like, there is no place for us to go. You are going to bring in this fire mission. And they said, you understand that we may kill you. And he said, I acknowledge. And they made him give his JTAC number, which is kind of a thing that denotes he is qualified to do this. Wow. And then he told him how to bring in the mission. I remember him yelling out to me like, hey, Red, stand by. And it's nighttime. It's like 4 a.m., so it's super dark. You can't see the gunship. It flies at a pretty high altitude. But I remember hearing the gun go off. So 40 millimeter, it's an explosive round, probably about 3/4 of it's about the size of this can, but about 3/4 around, and blows out and up and out and fragmentation and all this stuff. And I remember hearing it go off. I mean, I can fire a bunch of rounds at once. So it's boom, 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 boom. And I remember thinking, okay, stand by. And there's a delay because it's super high, So I remember like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, and then everything blew up over us. And miraculously, none of us were hit.
Wow. Holy shit.
And the gun went cold. Several of the guns went cold in front of me. And I could hear the enemy fighter calling out in pain. He was hit. And he was calling out Allah, Allah Akbar, which, he was calling out to his God. And I remember thinking like, stand by, bro. Like, here he comes. And there was another string of rounds that came in, and I didn't hear anything from him again. It took out more guns. In that lull, my team leader ran out and grabbed me and dragged me back, got me behind the tire. They brought in more fire missions. They got a tourniquet on my arm and they packed my face. And then we called in the medevac, and he was apparently, I don't remember this. Some of this I don't remember. Apparently I was drifting in and out of consciousness. But I do remember he started to drag me to the helicopter, and it landed 50 to 75 yards away from us. And I hadn't felt a whole lot of pain. I felt pain in the beginning when I was shot in the arm. I had not felt much pain with my face. I don't know if my senses were just overwhelmed, but as soon as he started dragging me, I was like, holy shit, that hurts. And I was like, hey, just stop. Like, help me up. Help me get to my feet. So he helped me up, and I still thought my arm had been shot off. Mm-hmm. And I had taken my helmet off, which later took a round through it. Like, when I was laying there, at some point, I took my helmet off and set it next to me, and it actually took a round through the helmet. I still have it at the house. Wow. So I told him, I said, hey, grab my helmet and grab my arm. I'm going to the helicopter. And I walked, 50 to 75 yards to that helicopter and got on. I remember there are like visions you have. Like, there are things in your mind that you remember. I'm sure there are some in your career, those nights where things are crazy, and it's like your brain takes a snapshot of what's going on. And I will never forget, man, as I got under the helicopter, there were some lights coming off the helicopter from the interior. So it was kind of casting this blue glow on us. And as I was walking up, I was leaning forward, and like I saw all this blood pouring out of my face onto my gear. And I had all this blood on my glove. And I remember grabbing, there's a handle on the inside door of the M60 of the Blackhawk, the M860, and I remember grabbing it, and like those two things are just seared in my mind, like my bloody glove, and then the blood.
It's miraculous that you were able to do that.
Hey man, I think God
it is
gave
God.
me. It is miraculous, and I wish I could say that I'm like the greatest Christian that ever lived since that moment that I had this miracle.
But you still get the Holy Spirit sometimes.
Amen. And I also, what I speak about in churches is, hey man, there's still faith is a really hard thing. I mean, you're believing in something that we can't see and touch. I have a moment that something miraculous happened. I felt 100%. Something that night. I haven't felt anything like it since. I wish I could quantify it. And I wish I never had doubts, but I do. But I also, a lot of reading the Bible and the New Testament and Jesus' disciples, they had doubts too.
Sure,
and they walk with that dude. Yeah. So if I have some doubts, I think it's okay.
Yeah, you get a pass.
Yeah. So
plus, you're a warrior. God loves warriors.
Yeah, and sometimes people get on me because I curse, and I'm like, I'm a cursing Christian. I'm sorry.
Me too.
But man, that night, it changed everything, man. I am fortunate. Doctors told me it was a miracle I survived. I would need I would need 8 blood transfusions over the 96 hours. They medevaced me. They said I lost almost 40% of my blood volume, which most people will not survive. I attribute a lot of that to God, but the doctors also attribute it to fitness. And I probably was in the best shape of my life because I was training for our screening for the Tier 1 unit. So if we weren't operating, I was working out like a banshee and running and doing everything I needed to do to prepare for that test. And there is no doubt that saved my life.
Wow,
your body can endure so much more stress when you're in good shape, so much more shock. I tell law enforcement and fire this when I speak to them, like, hey, man, like you guys have no idea when something's going to happen to you, and it could save your. It's not just that you physically have the ability to take your buddy, but it could physically save your life to be able to endure the damage and trauma that if you're out of shape you can't do. So yeah, man. 96 hours later, Bethesda Naval Hospital.
It's just crazy. There's so many questions in my head, but I guess it's an amazing feeling you must have right now. You're alive. But recovery is not an overnight thing. Like, how grueling was that process?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. When I first woke up, I was like elated. Like I remember waking up like, oh my God, like I am still alive. And high as a kite. Because man, I was on all kinds of crazy drugs.
Oh, I can't imagine.
But then reality kind of set in over the next week as I was being moved from hospital to hospital, and they would do stabilization surgeries. And I hadn't seen myself. As a matter of fact, I would not see what I looked like for almost 2 weeks after my injuries. But I knew, I had no use of my left hand. My arm that was immobilized in the beginning. And obviously my face was a mess. I had tubes coming out of what I could feel them. So I hadn't seen myself, but I could feel tubes. My face over those next weeks swelled to, there's a picture out there that did get online that was taken maybe a week after I was wounded. And remember the cartoon character, what was his name? He had a football shaped head. You know what I'm talking about? Like that's what my head looked like. Hey Arnold. Yeah. Hey Arnold. Yeah. Yeah. That's what my head
Arnold
looked like.
Had.
Yeah.
Okay.
The right side of my head was like swollen out to here. And because there was so much swelling, my eyes are like tiny little beady things, but they're bloodshot red. I look like a demon. And then there's all these stitches crisscrossing my face, and my nose is gone. There's just these tubes and what's left of my nose, and I'm trached and I'm wired shut. And they had put a stomach tube in me because they couldn't feed me. So yeah, that's what I woke up to and what I was facing. And they were like, it's going to take years to put you back together.
You ever talk to the doctors and the nurses that like worked on you and stuff like that?
100%.
I mean, amazing people. Right?
I'll be honest. I always was fascinated with medicine. If my life had gone a different way, I probably would have been a doctor. We learn a lot of trauma medicine. I'm fascinated with it. So I studied a lot. And yeah, such a tribute to the doctors and nurses that put me back together. My orthopedic doc, who happened to be a former SEAL at Bethesda, Dan Blake, shout out to you, brother. Much love. I still have an arm because of you.
God
like
bless
his team wanted to
God
amputate
bless
my
him.
arm, and they decided, he made the decision they weren't going to do it. And then he also referred me to the doctor he studied under out of Johns Hopkins, who actually got me a little bit of movement, which is pretty miraculous. I researched a lot. Really complicated injuries are hard because it's not like the doctors come in and they go, well, hey, here's what we're going to do. They go, hey, you're super complicated. Like there is no book that we pull open and we go, hey, they look at other cases and they're a little similar and they go, here's our options. Option A is this, here are the risks. Option B is this, here are the risks. Option C is this, here are the risks. What do you want to do?
Right. What are you supposed to say?
Yeah,
Whatever
I
you
was
want,
like,
man.
what do you mean? What do I want to do?
Just
I'm like,
fix
you're
me.
the doctor. Like, and
Just
they
put
were
me
like,
together.
no, there are risks, and you have to decide what risk and what path. So, I had my wife go buy like books, and I would call friends who I knew as we're in the medical community. I'd be like, I don't know what to do here. What's your advice?
Yeah.
And that led us to And not all I love, the military medical system is amazing. If there's one fault they have, there is no malpractice in the military. So doctors sometimes, there are doctors in the military that are doing surgeries outside the scope of their abilities. And this is not a dirty secret. There are guys that I have a friend who was a SEAL who a doctor worked on his back and crippled him. And unfortunately it happens.
Sure. There's a lot of, I forget what they call them, but they're not they're like the student doctors, and there's a word for it where they literally will allow these students to work on the patients.
Yeah.
My buddy was just telling me the other day, where I won't mention the name, it was a heart surgery, and the student punctured the heart, and the surgeon then had to come in, thankfully saved the guy's life.
Yeah.
The guy would have died.
It happens.
It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, it happens. Although, and yes, that actually happens. That's a lot.
Way more common.
But so imagine if now it's the high-level surgeon that doesn't have the ability, who steps in and fixes him.
Yeah.
And that actually happens. So when the oral maxillofacial guys that were going to rebuild my face, they couldn't answer any of my questions. And I was like, show me what you've done before that's similar to this. And they couldn't show me. So I ended up searching and finding doctors on the outside, and ended up going to the outside world, and ended up landing on an amazing doctor by the name of Eduardo Rodriguez, Ed Rodriguez, who was a up and coming star in facial reconstruction. And he would end up rebuilding my face. And he is regarded today as the premier facial reconstruction surgeon in the world.
Wow.
So I just got lucky. Because, I mean, most people are like, dude, you took a machine gun around the face. You look amazing.
You look great. I was going to say, I didn't know what to expect meeting you
Find
today.
me hot, don't you?
I didn't want to say. But you walked up, I was like,
I'm kind of attracted.
That's a good-looking guy. Holy shit.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. It's not gay.
No, okay, good. As long as it's not gay, then
Johnny
I'll say
asked me. Yeah, I'm looking married.
Fine. I was very impressed. It looks. I would never have known
I saw the ring.
Seriously.
I backed off.
Yeah.
Fuck, he's taken.
It's like, how you doing?
Yeah. No, but it is.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many miraculous moments, God moments where God made an impact in my life, and those are all of them. From Dan Valaic saving my arm to obviously getting connected with Ed Rodriguez and him rebuilding my face. So I'm fortunate. Everything, it's taught me so much about myself and in life, and to take those things. I mean, so many people, I often talk from stage. Most people hear this story, and it's a once in a lifetime story. That gunfight, even DJ said it was the most violent gunfight he was ever in his entire career. Most people can't relate to that. They listen to that story and they're like, that's so overwhelming. I can't relate to it. But I tell people, everyone gets ambushed in life. Everyone. All of us, it may not be the bullets and bombs of battle, but everybody gets hit with the bullets and bombs of life. Everyone's been shot down by injury, illness, or loss. Everyone's been blown up by rejection or failure. And every human has walked through the minefields of depression and despair. And as have I, I mean, that gunfight is not, it sure would be nice to think that bad thing that happened to me was the only, I skipped down the yellow brick road from that point forward. And it ain't true, man. I've had other life ambushes that I've had to navigate. But that framework I talked about in the beginning is how I live my life. And they're all lessons I had to learn. Lead yourself, lead always, build that overcome mindset and get off the X. Have that mission and purpose. That sign on the door became my mission and purpose. And then the last one is live greatly, which live greatly is a principle that came out of one, I got a second chance at life. So many people live their life based in fear and doubt. They're afraid to go do things. They're, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL, or I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do this. And so many people won't do it because they're like, well, my parents will disapprove, or what will my friends think? Or, what if I don't make it? Go do it. Like, you get one shot at this life. And I will tell you, you asked me the things that I thought about. The other thing that I thought about laying there dying, aside from my family, is I thought about things that I hadn't done. Like, I wish I had done these things. I wish I had told my family I loved them more. I wish I had, done other things. I can't, right off the top of my head, but and I think everyone, if you have the luxury of facing death, it will be the same. So I said, I don't ever want to be in that situation again. God gave me this second chance, so I want to go after it. People sometimes are like, I don't know how you do all the things you do. I mean, Brandon can attest. I mean, I am an insane person who does a lot of things, but the reason being is I want to go after it. And if I'm not successful in it, at least I can say, well, I tried it and I went after it. At least I can check that box. And when I get to the end, I can say, hey man, I did it. I tried it. Maybe I wasn't successful. I was successful at all these other things, as opposed to the vast majority of people in life. They're going to get to the end of their life and they're going to look back and they're going to go, what if? What if? So that ain't me. I also think the flip side of living greatly is I've lost too many friends. And they were way better SEALs than me. Mike McGreevy, Adam Brown, Kevin Houston, Bobby Ramirez, my best friend, all way better SEALs than me. And I don't know why I got to come home and they didn't. But I will say this, that living greatly, in my opinion, is, okay, how do I become the best version of myself, the elite version of me, through those principles? And that hopefully, if they're looking down from wherever they are, up in heaven, Valhalla, wherever it is, hopefully they're looking down and they're like, man, Jason Redman, that guy's doing it. I didn't get to come home, but at least he's crushing it, man. He's making an impact on people. And I respect that. And that's my goal. And I think that's, for anybody that's lost someone, I think that's the way we honor them.
Has because you mentioned almost like this guilt or regret in those moments of, I wish I did these things. How conscious are you even saying I love you more? Is this like an everyday practice now? You wake up with this excitement and thankfulness of life?
100%, man. And don't get me wrong, man, I am human. I have my down moments and, I get tired like everybody else, but I shake myself out. I'm like, get off that. Yeah, I can't tell you how often I tell myself to get off the X. Bad things happen. I teach the overcome mindset, which is built on 3 principles: awareness, preparation, and action. No different than a military special operation. We should all live our lives this way. Always playing out what is the scenario in anything we're doing. And what is the worst case scenario that can happen? That's awareness. Now we're able to prepare. And sometimes it's just mental preparation. Yeah. Like, okay, I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, then I'm going to be mentally prepared and to take action. Because most people, if they haven't done those things, they freeze and they can't function. Mm-hmm.
Are you still close with the guys you were in battle with, like DJ Shipley and all them?
Yeah. 100%. There's a new documentary that just came out called In Waves and War. It's a line from, I believe, the Odyssey. And, it's interesting. I was wounded the worst, but I don't want to say I've done the best, but I mentally, and some of that has to do with, I think I failed as a leader. So I had built all these frameworks before I got wounded, so that when I got wounded, I was kind of like, all right, well, you've been through worse.
You're ready.
Let's go.
Yeah.
But war takes a tremendous toll. I carry, people can look at me and know something happened to me, but oftentimes it's those invisible wounds. And I know both DJ and Maddie and even Luke and my team lead, everybody kind of struggled. I had my own struggles for a while and I managed to overcome that also. But this documentary is about them. It's about Marcus Capone, a teammate of mine who was there with Red Wings, Matty Roberts, who was there with Red Wings, DJ, who was connected to that also. But it's their journey, and they ended up doing, Marcus now runs a psychedelic program to help guys. So anyways, wow. I get to see those guys on a regular basis. We did the 20-year anniversary of Operation Red Wings was this year. So we went all to Texas, and the majority of us were there, which was pretty awesome to see all those guys. I'm in touch with those guys, on a pretty regular basis. I stay in touch with a lot of the guys that I went through training with. My 30-year anniversary for SEAL training is coming up, so we're having a big reunion, which will be cool.
That's great. Well, now, why is DJ Shipley so well known? Like, he's one of the biggest names in the world of social media. Is it just because he's been present and
yeah, I think he's done a really good job of making content and the way he's presenting it and doing the balance of SEAL, and he was a tier 1 guy, which I think there's a lot of fascination with that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Rightfully so. And he's packaged it well to deliver it in a way that I think is relatable to individuals who are fascinated with the tier 1 side, but also making it relatable to how do you apply those things in life. And I think DJ is also really candid, like I am. He talks about the mistakes and the challenges and the problems. So no, man, I'm proud of DJ and Cole for the company they built and what they're doing.
He also, like you said before, he looks the part. Like you picture Navy SEAL, you want them all to look like him.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like a
beast,
freak
bro.
of nature guy.
Yeah.
How tall is he? Looks like a big dude.
He's maybe 6 foot, 6'1".
He's just
he's
jacked.
just jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him. He left a comment under. It was some sort of mental health awareness post. I think it was about veterans and mentioning. He didn't mention psychedelics. I think it was just marijuana based, but he was very pro.
Yeah.
I guess treatment for these guys. Do you feel like there's things that you have done post war that have helped you that other guys aren't doing?
Well, I was really proactive, and I talked to a lot of guys. I am a big mental health advocate, and it doesn't fix itself by ignoring it. I will tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
James Hatch is a SEAL teammate who really struggled. He was shot in the raid. He was a Tier 1 guy who was shot in the femur and killed his dog in the raid to try and get Bo Bergdahl. And it ended Jimmy's career, and he really spiraled down. I mean, he had ridden this Tier 1 combat train for many years. I think Jimmy had done like 12 combat deployments or something. And suddenly it all came to an end, and he's crippled. And he just spiraled down and tried to do suicide by cop. And he got put into a mental institution and really had to navigate and find his way out of it. And he wrote a book called Touching the Dragon. So if anybody's ever been through trauma, I highly recommend this book. But what Jimmy describes, and I love it. When I ran my nonprofit, I made every wounded warrior read it. But he basically says that trauma, and this applies to any trauma, I don't care what it is, combat trauma, sexual trauma, violent trauma, whatever it is, trauma is kind of like a dragon. And it lives in your mind. Once you're exposed to it, this dragon lives in your head, and it's constantly eating you. A lot of people, what they do is they just try and box that dragon up and stuff it in the back of their mind and like chain it up and ignore it and be like, yeah, I'm just going to put this back there and pretend it's not there. But the problem is it's a dragon. And there are things that will happen that trigger it if you haven't dealt with it, and then it comes out of the box and it eats you again. So it's just this cycle that never ends. So anyways, I was pretty proactive. Like around 4 years after I was wounded, I was really struggling and not sleeping, which is a big problem. So I started exploring things. There was another thing that happened that kind of helped me, and that was I was having a lot of infection problems in my face. So I ended up doing hyperbaric treatments. And now we're beginning to learn that hyperbaric is actually potentially having positive effects on brain injuries.
Yeah.
So I had done that. There's something called stellate ganglion block that I did, which is a shot they inject into your stellate ganglion nerve that creates this reset on the brain. It doesn't work for everybody, but I will say it worked for me.
Explain that one again.
So they take numbing agent and they inject it into your stellate ganglion nerve that, it's a nerve that comes up, out of your neck and goes to your brain. You have one on each side. And I only did one side. I guess now they're doing both. But it's kind of like the idea is it's kind of like a reboot of your brain. It numbs and your face kind of goes numb for, a period of time. You kind of feel a little fuzzy minded for a bit, and then, it goes away. And for me, that I felt like I finally was able to start sleeping again.
Oh, because you weren't sleeping.
Right. Which only makes things worse. I mean,
Right,
if you're
of
not
course.
sleeping, sleep is so critical. That's why, be careful with alcohol. I mean, alcohol is the worst thing you can do for sleep. And I do still drink sometimes, but much less than I used to, because I know how it impacts sleep. And a lot of individuals with trauma use alcohol to self-medicate and deal with the trauma. So they'll drink themselves till they pass out, but then they're not getting good sleep. So they'll wake up and rinse and repeat the cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So I wonder if the positive results were from this injection or just from now you're able to sleep. Because, you know it too. If you don't sleep, a couple of days you go without sleep and your brain just does not work.
Right.
So I wonder if it was maybe a combination of both. But I would assume that the sleep is above everything.
It was huge, but the stellate ganglion block enabled that.
Right.
So,
It
I
allowed you to sleep.
I don't know, it reduced some of the hypervigilance and some of the, I don't know.
That's so interesting.
So I also tried something called magnetic resonance therapy that kind of tries to align your brain waves. I know some guys that had amazing outcomes with that. I didn't. or it just didn't. I didn't feel like it did anything for me. I also got a service dog around that time.
Okay.
And my service dog was amazing, Karma, who also I think helped mellow me some. You know, hard to believe now. He's 10 and a half.
No.
So he's retired as a service dog. But yeah, so all these things, I always tell guys, you know, I call it the failed breach scenario. And you'll appreciate this. So when we breach a door on target, you know, or even in training, you know, we'll knock a door or a wall open and the call is open, meaning it's clear and you can make entry. So the train is waiting for that call. If they don't call that, they're going to call failed breach, which should mean an immediate reattack on either that door, or we decide to pivot to another entry point and attack that breach point. Well, I meet all these guys who are struggling with trauma, and they'll try one thing and then it doesn't work. And then they just go back to what they were doing before. And I call that a failed breach scenario. Like, never once on a target would you have, you know, tried one time and you didn't get in, and then you like, oh, well, it didn't work. So I try to encourage guys out there and gals, you know, like, hey, you owe it to yourself to what works for me may not work for you. And what works for you may not work for me. So psychedelics and marijuana and those things, I'm all about anything that can help our veterans. Specifically, I mean, I'm a huge veteran advocate. Stanford has done some big studies on psychedelics, and we know that there are some pretty amazing things that are happening. We're actually regenerating neural networks, which there's not a whole lot of things that will do that. So it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, I would say that 95% of the people that I know went and did Ibogaine and MDMA and all these different things have had amazing results.
Yeah.
Marcus,
you gotta keep trying. Your mental health is so important, and you know, because a lot of law enforcement, firemen, stuff like that. The military, I think it's just so prominent in, but it is like the biggest thing. Like that, when you hear that somebody committed suicide, it is like you're like, what?
Oh, we're gonna have to call this.
I was about to say, yeah, I know. So I have like so many more questions, and like this is just amazing, and I know we have to get going here. So I guess we could wrap up now. We do ask every guest 2 questions.
Let me.
Yeah. Throughout your life, what has been the lowest of your lows, and I could probably assume, and what has been the highest of your highs?
I mean, the lowest of my lows was definitely failing as a leader and being told, you know, we don't want you, and, you know, we want to kick you out. And I mean, I put a gun in my mouth and was ready to take my life. So that is definitely the lowest point of my life. Thankfully, once again, God kind of smacked me in the back of the head and was like, what are you doing? And I always tell people, be thankful for life ambushes that come. They're super painful and they suck, but nothing builds an overcome mindset more than navigating through, getting off that X and driving forward, leading yourself to success. It builds your overcome muscles. You don't build an overcome mindset in easy times. Mm-hmm. You have to do hard things. You have to navigate through adversity. So that was probably the hardest point. The high point, gosh, man, that's such a, I've lived such an amazing life, man. I feel like I've lived 2 lifetimes. I don't know if I could say just one thing. I would probably just say my family is my most important thing, man. My wife is amazing. My kids are amazing. I am just thankful for them. So if it goes back to one thing that enabled that, it was probably picking and marrying my wife, because she has been the most amazing, teammate, the most important teammate. I mean, her and I wrote a relationship book just to try and help other people because, man, we've been through it. So, and she's been with me for almost every part of the journey. I mean, I met her, I'd been in about 8 years. So everything forward from that, from my leadership failure to my injuries to other life ambushes later in life in both business and health and all these things. So
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Something.
That's great. Well, Jason, I mean, I can't, again, thank you enough. And I wish we had more hours to spend here, but this has been incredible.
You. Yeah. Thank you. Listen, I have
and go buy Patriot Hard Seltzer.
Patriot Hard Seltzer.
Help support the sacrifice. It is an amazing beverage. If you're in New Jersey, you definitely need to get some. And we're coming to Texas and Virginia, guys. And if you're interested, if you're interested in being a part of the brand and investing, what is it? Info at Patriot.
We'll put that link in the
patriotseltzer.com.
description. We'll put the socials in the description. And then yours is at Jason Redman.
Yep. And I got some big things coming. Check out turbovets.com. We're revolutionizing how we take care of our veterans. So, guys, pretty amazing tech that a fellow veteran has developed. I want to make sure every veteran gets every benefit that's earned. I want every one of you out there to accomplish your American dream. It's my mission to do that. That's my new mission right now.
Love it. God bless, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.